Hello? Hello? Wait a minute. Can you hear me if I stand over here? Somebody, should I adjust this? How's that? Is that better? Yeah? All right. Thanks, boys. Yeah. How's that? All right, there you go. Ready? Night 2 of the Wakefield 2018 town meeting. Well, we're on Article 3. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from tax levy or to transfer from available funds a sum of money to the capital projects / debt service fund, also known as the debt service fund, or to see what the town will do about it. Mr. Mayo.
Appropriate from tax levy to the Capital Projects Fund, also known as the Debt Service Fund, the sum of $4,552,000 to carry out the purposes of this article.
Is there a second? Mr. Donaco, thank you. Mr.
Thank you,
Mayo.
Mr. Moderator. The purpose of this article is to supplement the $1 million that each year is automatically appropriated without town meeting approval for debt service. This $1 million appropriation is authorized by a Massachusetts legislative act. The $4,552,000 requested under this article, along with the automatic $1 million appropriation, is used to fund our debt payment for fiscal year 2019. Included in this figure is $2,418,100 for the debt exclusion for the new Galvin School. The remaining $2,133,900 is the amount necessary to continue the payments on our other bonds, including the Walton School approved last year. In the near future, I anticipate the commitment to this program increasing as we continue to look at other capital projects. Then we will hopefully reduce this budget again as future projects fall off. This is a very important program and allowed us to finance a number of projects, including 2 schools, the library, the public safety building, the senior center improvements to the town hall, the new Galvin, the athletic facility improvements at the high school. We are now nearing the end for many of these projects. The Dahlberg School will be completely paid off in fiscal year 2020, with the Woodville and Senior Center paid off in 2021, and the public safety building in 2022. When these payments are completed, close to $1.5 million per year will be freed up for other projects. The Town Council, the Finance Committee, and Capital Planning Committee will be meeting to map out a game plan in this regard. We look forward to extending that conversation. The Council recommends favorable action.
Mr. Sherman, FinCom.
For those of you here a week ago, I talked a little bit about this debt service fund, and that has a quite low balance. So we want to get this back up to where it needs to be so we can do these projects. So the Finance Committee recommends favorable action on this article.
Discussion on the motion before you under Article 3 regarding the debt service fund. Just looking for a seat. There being no discussion, the motion before you is that the town raise and appropriate from tax levy to the Capital Projects Fund, also known as the Debt Service Fund, the sum of $4,552,000 to carry out the purposes of this article. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Assessors to use such sum of the balance of the operating fund of the Municipal Gas and Light Department as of June 30th, 2018, as the Board of Light Commissioners may vote in computing the tax rate for the fiscal period July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2019, or to see what the town will do about it. Mr. Mayo.
That the town vote to authorize the Board of Assessors to use such sum of the balance of the operating fund of the Municipal Gas and Light Department as of June 30th, 2018, as the Board of Light Commissioners may vote in computing the tax rate for fiscal period July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2019.
Is there a second? Mr. Mayo.
It is recommended that the amount of $891,145 be transferred to the town treasury from the operating fund of the Municipal Light Department for the fiscal year 2019 budget, and that the assessors be authorized to use this amount in establishing the tax rate for fiscal year 2019. This is an increase of $13,270 over last year's payment. Pete Dyer and the Board of Light Commissioners have been very helpful this past year in finding innovative ways to conserve and collaborate with the town in a number of areas and thereby save the town money. It is anticipated that over the next year, MLD and the town will work together to establish a better methodology to provide for a consistent formula in forecasting this amount. This action, taken together with the action taken in conjunction with Article 1, Light Department of the budget, will permit the Municipal Light Commissioners to provide for the ordinary operation of the department.
Mr. Sherman.
Finance Committee recommends favorable action on the article.
Any discussion on the motion under Article 4? There being no discussion, the motion before you that the town vote to authorize the Board of Assessors to use such sum of the balance of the operating fund of the Municipal Gas and Light Department as of June 30th, 2018, as the Board of Light Commissioners may vote in computing the tax rate for the fiscal period July 1, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. To carry out the purpose of this article, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to implement collective bargaining agreements between the town of Wakefield and the Lucius Beebe Memorial Library Staff Association for the period of July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2021, and to provide, therefore, that the town raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money to carry out the purposes of this article, or to see what the town will do about it. Mr. Mayo.
That the town vote to implement a collective bargaining agreement between the town of Wakefield and the Lucius Beebe Memorial Library Staff Association for the period of July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2021, and to provide, therefore, that the town supplement the library personnel services account by raising and appropriating from tax levy the amount of $27,000.
Thank you, Mr. Donaco. Mr. Mayo.
Article 5 will provide a contractual increases for our very hardworking library staff. Consistent with all the other union contracts on the municipal side, this contract will run from July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2021, and has the same cost of living increases. July 1st, 2018, 1.5%. January 1st, 2019, 1.5%. July 1st, 2019, 1.5%. January 1st, 2020, 1.5%. July 1st, 2020, 1.5%. And January 1st, 2021, 1.5%. By implementing the raises in 6-month intervals, the cash cost of the town is less. This contract maintains Sunday hours and creates a new top step at 1.5% on July 1st, 2019 and July 1st, 2020. Also, the positions of Circulation Director and Maintenance Supervisor have been upgraded. All contracts have been approved by the Town Council and Finance Committee, and overall is about 1.6% increase in that budget.
Is that 27 total for the entire period?
27 total.
Okay, I didn't have the motion down, yeah. Mr. Sherman.
The 27 is just 1 year.
1 year, yeah.
Yeah, just make
Okay,
that clear.
So that is 27 per year.
Well, there's some inflation, so it's going to be 27,
Don't get technical, just say
28,
you approve.
29, anyway.
Okay.
Say asked and answered to.
The Finance Committee met and discussed this last Monday and approved the contract and encourages a positive vote this evening.
Any discussion? See if I get this right, Steve. To see if the town will vote to implement collective bargaining agreements between the town of Wakefield, the Lucius Beebe Memorial Library Staff Association for the period of July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2021, and to provide that the town raise and appropriate a supplemental amount of $27,000 per year?
No, just $27,000 from tax levy.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Article 6. To see if the town will vote to implement collective bargaining agreements between the town of Wakefield and the Wakefield Clerical, Town Hall, AFSCME Council 93, Local 3117 for the period July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2021, and to provide, therefore, that the town raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money to carry out the purposes of this article. See what the town will do about it. Mr. Mayo.
Town moves indefinite postponement.
Ooh, is there a second? Second. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Indefinitely postponed. We are virtually screaming along. Don't worry. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to implement collective bargaining agreements for the town of Wakefield and the Wakefield, Massachusetts Laborers District Council, Local 381, for the period July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021, to provide, therefore, that the town raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money to carry out the purpose of this article, to see what the town will do about it. Mr. Mayo.
Town moves indefinite postponement.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Indefinitely postponed. Article 8. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of money for remodeling, reconstructing, or making extraordinary repairs to, and for constructing additions to the public safety building, 1 Union Street, including the cost of originally equipping, furnishing, landscaping, paving, and performing other site improvements, incidental or directly related to such remodeling, reconstruction, repair, additions, and new construction, and including architectural surveying and engineering fees and other costs incidental or related thereto, and to determine whether to raise the appropriation by borrowing or otherwise, or to take any other action related to this, or see what the town will do about it. Mr. Mayo.
That the town appropriate the sum of $8 million for remodeling, reconstructing, or making extraordinary repairs to and for construction additions to the public safety building on Union Street, including the cost of originally equipping, furnishing, landscaping, paving, and performing other site improvements incidental or directly related to such remodeling, reconstruction, repair, additions, and new construction, and including architectural, surveying, and engineering fees and other costs incidental or related thereto, and to raise this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the town council, is authorized to borrow the sum of $8 million under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7 of the general laws, or any other building enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. Any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, lest any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Is there a second? Mr. Zanacco, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bertrand, you're up. Joe, are you going to use this?
No,
Okay.
I wouldn't know how.
Okay. Mr. Bertrand.
Joseph Bertrand, Chairman of the Permanent Building Committee. In 1992, town meeting established the Public Safety Building Committee to examine the issues at the fire station that was built in 1900. There were numerous issues, the major one being the opening for the fire trucks that was too low for a ladder truck. And the floor that the fire truck sat on had very serious issues. The committee explored various solutions over many years, and eventually the problems were dealt with the construction of a new public safety building in 2004. At that time, the selectmen and the police chief wanted to have civilian dispatchers, thereby freeing up more uniformed policemen. However, that did not come into fruition. In the 1990s, the theory at that time for public safety was to have dispatch all alone so that no one could disturb them in their work. Thus, the dispatch in the new public safety building was located on the second floor. 2 years ago, town meeting authorized a feasibility study in the amount of $100,000 for the police department and the public safety building. The Permanent Building Committee selected HKT Architects to perform that study. Their work included a review of the existing facility, an evaluation of the safety and operational aspects of the building, an evaluation of the current and future space needs of the police and fire departments that had changed since the 1990s when the public safety building was built. After numerous meetings with the police, the fire department, HKT Architects have proposed a design to meet the needs both of the police and the fire department. Chief Smith will now discuss the issues and the findings of that study.
It is my understanding that the chief may need more than 10 minutes. I'll entertain a motion for an additional 5 minutes. So moved. Second. Any discussion? There being no discussion, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening and welcome. I'm here tonight to talk about, as Mr. Bertrand did, the spatial needs or deficiencies, not of the public safety building, but of the police station. Although this project will encompass our public safety building, the majority of what we're going to talk about tonight, and what I'm going to talk about tonight, are the needs of the police side of that building. The building known as the public safety building on the police side is actually a 1950s building. That building, as you can see in the slide, the top left that is a building built in 1950. At the time, the Wakefield Police Department had 26 officers. We answered 3,000 calls for service. Fast forward to today, in 2018, we are in the same building. The building is exactly the same, goes over to that wall. This is a facade that's unusable space. That is there for decoration. Today we have 47 officers, and we have 3 civilians who work within the police department in different roles that we have. So we're not talking about a 15-year-old building here. We're talking about a 68-year-old building. And we are, as a police department, are in that 68-year-old building. True, there were changes made to that building 15 years ago when we built what is known as the public safety building. But I'm here to tell you that the town of Wakefield built, and the chief will support me, an incredibly contemporary, well-needed fire station. Of the $10 million spent to build that facility, it's safe for me to say tonight that less than $2 million of that 10 went into the police station side. The building that we stepped into on February 29th, 2004, was built not for the future. In fact, it wasn't even built for that date. And I made it public as soon as I came here. I happened to come here on January 4th, 2004. I made it known as I looked at the building as it was being wrapped up that the building was way too small for 47, at the time, 45 police officers. This is what we have today. You see, on the left side, this is the old public safety building. In fact, this area right here was what was that L you saw off to the side of the police station. That area right there is common space. The first floor is the lobby, which I will say it's a beautiful lobby. It's sexy, it's clean, but that has nothing to do with the police station. Above that is the gym, it's shared space, and above that on the top level, right here, that area up there is fire department. To the right, you see almost all of the fire building, brand new. To the right of that is an exterior stairwell. It's an interior stairwell, but it's on the exterior of the living quarters, the fire side. You can see where the issues lie here. This is the front of the current police building. We're 17 feet off of the sidewalk. 3 floors times 17 feet makes up for the 4,700 square feet that we think we're short. We're actually 40% short in workable police space than we should be. We, when they built the building, actually lost space. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But as you look at the slide, you'll see on the right-hand lower corner here, that's the southwest corner of the building, the southwest corner of the fire side. That backs up to Princess Street, and it also backs up to Union Street. The police side does not do that, as evidence right here. So we lost a ton of space, or let me put it in a different way. we didn't gain any space. We talk about wasted space, and the wasted space is actually not there because it's front lawn. This is all front lawn. It's unusable space as we operate today. The independent study that we commissioned, as spelled out by Mr. Bertrand, is interesting because what came out of that independent study, and I want to say this, that was a study. It's not final. It was a study, it was a need feasibility study that was funded in May of 2016 to look into the issue that we're talking to you tonight about. So if you look at it, we're undersized. The police side is undersized by 40%. And I'll get into each one of these as we go along. The front lobby area, there are accessibility and safety issues. Right now, that area is only maintained 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. Any other time after that, after 3 o'clock, after 2:30, there's nobody in the lobby to tend to anybody's business. The water leaks, critical to the IT, I'll talk about that a little bit. Environmental issues, the evidence storage issues are huge for us. The overall layout is not conducive to 2018 best practices. Like I said, the building is not built for the future. It was built pre-2004. And the analysis determined that the most efficient and cost-effective means to use usable space would be a structurally independent horizontal addition, which I'll talk to you about in a bit. As I said earlier, on Article 6 on May 2nd, 2016, the people right here at the annual town meeting approved $100,000. The RFP was distributed and was available on August 12th, 2016, with a submission date of August 26th of 2016. And we actually held a site visit for all architects and all firms who had an interest in the building at August 16, 2016 at 5 p.m. So anyone who had any interest in looking at our feasibility study was more than welcome to come to the town of Wakefield. As we move forward, this is a lobby. This is, I'm sure, what everybody thinks the police station is all about today. This is common area. When I say we're 4,000 square feet short and where we are, or 40% where we are, the numbers show that we have 20,000 square feet of space in the police station. If you take away the common areas, being the weight room, the lobby area, and the garage, we're left with 10,000 square feet to work out of for 47 offices. A building today for 47 or 50 offices is usually somewhere around 22 to 28,000 square feet, in some cases, depending on the community, larger. The lobby is very unique. This is what you see when you come in the lobby after 2:30, any day of the week, every holiday, weekend, and throughout the night. The only way that you can reach a police officer outside of the 6 hours a day is because of that, is due to that little phone right there. And you'll notice a lot of things hanging on the wall. Signs all over the place. When people come into our lobby, and when I say our, I say the public safety lobby, when they come in, it is so confusing, they know not where to go. Our records people field hundreds of calls, hundreds of people in the course of a month who are so confused when they come into this building. They have nowhere to go, but they find the one police officer that's working in the records section, and they ask that person how to get to the fireside. The signs right here, we had to have the signs changed, and it's printed both in English and Spanish because the community is changing, and you can see other signs here as you walk through the building. So you can see that this is very confusing. People actually do not see a police officer. They have to pick up a phone. In many cases, Chief Sullivan and I agree, it's safer for someone to go over to the dollar store, pick up a phone, or go outside and pick up a cell phone and call 911 than to come into the lobby. This is a liability that is going to well be beyond $8 million, I can tell you that. I've been in this business a long time. This is a safe haven facility, and we can't provide the safe haven pieces that we need to provide under the safe haven law. This is some of our spatial needs. And again, what you're going to see and what we're going to talk about tonight, and I really want to make sure everybody understands this, is a cumulative effort. I'm just not going to talk about environmental. I'm not going to talk about evidentiary issues. I'm not going to talk about the lobby in one. I'm going to talk about the building in total. And again, we're talking about a 1950 building that's 68 years old. The clinician area, that area there at one time was an armory for us. It was where we stored our ammunition and weapons. So what we had to do is when we brought on a clinician to help us with our mental health initiatives, which are nationally known, we had to put the clinician in that. Basically, it's a closet. It is a closet. There's very little ventilation in there. There's no windows. It's not conducive to a healthy environment. Not only is that office staffed by a clinician, but it's also staffed by a domestic violence expert that we have brought on board to help us combat and deal with domestic violence victims within the town. Family Services Office, to the right of that, is pretty much the same thing. That is a very small closet, very small area where our Family Services Officer works out of. She's a full-time officer. She's a sworn officer, and she shares that room. That room is probably 5 feet wide at the most. And then to the right of that, that is the water service. That's where the water service comes into the entire public safety building. That is a room that we use on a daily basis for our canine to store the equipment that our canine officer uses on a daily basis. That sometimes we can't keep in his cruiser, and we have to use this space specifically for the equipment that goes with that canine and with that program. Our locker rooms, you'll see up here, it's terrible use of space. There are columns in the middle of it. Many of the lockers are unusable, even though they're there. We talked about the 5-foot storage rooms in the basement that was once used as an armory and a canine equipment. Our roll call room, which we don't have a picture of here, is much too small. We cannot hold daily briefings in there. We cannot have meetings in there. We cannot train our officers in CPR, which is an annual event. We cannot do that because of the size of the room. So you can see there's a lot of issues here that are cumulative in total. This is the existing second floor plan. This is basically all the room we have to operate in the police station. This is the communications area. It's on the second floor. It's very secure, I'll give you that, and it should be. But to the left, as you look at it, this was the OIC's room. That's where the officer in charge, who in our facility, in our building, in our policing today, is a sergeant. Could be a lieutenant, but for the most part, it's a sergeant. They've been evicted pretty much out of that room because we have to use that room for storage, to store patrol officers' equipment, the sergeant's equipment. No sergeant has a desk to do work. No sergeant has a desk to store training materials on. Sergeant's responsible for training our personnel. Their logs, their activity sheets. There's no room in there. That room right there. So we use it for storage. In there we keep our tasers. We keep some other weapons that we may need on the street. We keep emergency equipment so that if we need to get to that equipment and it's not on the street, the officers have to come into that area. We don't have an area to store that. So as a result, sergeants are working out of a file cabinet or their pocket, quite frankly, because they don't have a place to work out of. Over here is the administrative side of the building. This is all on one floor. Right there is the conference room. It's the only conference room the police department has. It'll fit 4 comfortably. It'll fit 6 if we really want to get cozy with one another. I have a senior staff meeting every week in the police department. There are 4 of us, sometimes 5, depending on who gets invited to the meeting. It's tight in there. We have staff meetings in our agency quite frequently for the entire command staff. If I need to have those meetings, I have to ask Chief Sullivan if I can borrow his conference room to have a meeting to discuss ongoing issues, training, or whatever within the police department. So you can see that there's a huge issue here. And a lot of this has to do with confidentiality, because what we talk about could be leadership issues, it could be ongoing cases, it could be employment issues, could be grievances. I would hope we don't have grievances, but we do. Some of the storage issues we have, you can see here our bicycles are stored in a stairwell. These are just some of the cages that are in the garage that are unsuitable. And this is another storage area. You'll notice it's up on pallets because of water issues that we have in the building. We talked about ventilation issues. This is what our employees are breathing. These are the vents in the building. This is both on the fire side and on the police side. We've had them cleaned, and they continue to be fouled. We had them tested, and we've been told there's no mold, but we have no idea what that is. But I can tell you that our employees are breathing that. This is the one storage room we have for dead storage, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's black debris on that file cabinet that's coming out of the ventilation system. When I talk about the environmental issues, the building is completely vented wrong. When Chief Sullivan's people are working in their tool room, trying to repair equipment that might have been damaged or needs adjustment, if they use chemicals, it gets vented into the police side of the building. On times, we've had staff leave the building because it's toxic. I can tell you it's not good for you the way it smells. We have no idea what it is. And it took us a long time to figure out that it was coming out of the fire department tool room. 2 summers ago, we had a problem with batteries in the basement, in the garage. And we had to, because of the smell of acid coming through the vents into the building, we had the offices, except for the critical staff, had to leave the building. What was added, and my focus tonight is on our spatial needs, and I can't say that enough. We don't have enough space. This is the back of the police station. Right over here on your right-hand side is the new, old, 68-year-old building with a fancy roof. This area here was added to the police department. Back in 1950 and prior to 2003, this area here was a garage that held 9 or 10 cars, a driveway, and that was it. So they gave us this area. And what we gained out of that was a generator, the heating system, the water cooling system, the 911 system, the radios. We gained no room. We took on all the material, all the equipment that needs to run the building, the systems in the building. Heat, hot water, air conditioning, everything is on our side. The emergency generator is on the police side of the public safety building. So when people say, well, Chief, you have a brand new building, we don't. We have a 68-year-old building that had a few walls moved and some nice paint put on the walls. And that's basically what we have. We have no more room today than we had in 2003 and that they had in 1950. We did add a sally port, two doors here for prisoners. And I will show you a picture in a bit. This is the inside of the sally port. It's small, so small that we cannot unload prisoners. When we unload prisoners in the sally port, we have to leave the doors open. The purpose of a sally port is to secure it so that the prisoners cannot leave the building. So we can't even open out doors from the inside. We have to call a radio room, have them open it so we can transfer our prisoners out of the cruiser and into the lockup. Very dangerous, not only for the prisoner, but for our personnel. That's where most officers are hurt. You'll see there's a column there, restricts us moving a vehicle in and out. We have no place to keep a vehicle for evidence purposes. If we do a search warrant on a vehicle, or we get a car that's burned and we're doing an investigation on it, we lose one side of the sally port, and we can't use the other side because of these vertical columns. This picture right here just goes to show this was the bicycle room. We converted it to an armory. That's where we keep our weapons. That's where we keep our ammunition. That's where we work on our weapons and our tasers. We keep our targets, and that's where we clean our weapons. It's in an unsecured part of the building. We had to move it there. And you can see up there with the back of the patrol van backs up against the wall. And here are these are some of the pictures of some of the spatial problems we have. This right here, this is the 911 room, and that's on the actually the third floor. That right there, I cannot walk through. I have to turn sideways to walk in there. The 911 equipment is on the back wall here. You really can't see it, but that room is so small that someone can't actually go in there and service it. They have to be a small person. A large person can't get in that room. This here is the boiler room. That is on our side of the building, on the police side of the building. This is some of the water issues that we've had. This is very common throughout the building. Right here is our radio room, this is our IT room. This is where part of our server room right here. That just goes to show the size. We're maxed out. Any updates in there, we're in trouble because we can't get any more servers or anything in there. And over here is the generator room. Again, that's on our side. All of this was added to the building at the expense of space for the police department. And I have one last slide. And then I have a feeling I'm going to entertain some questions, so we can get to those very quickly. But this is what the artist's rendition, architect's rendition of what a new facility may look like. Again, this is a study. Right here is where you come in now. That will be moved to the right, and the lobby will service both the fire and the police in a reasonable manner. It'll have a natural flow. The police building will come out where it should be, 17 feet and up 3 floors, right here. This is a facade. We can't use it for storage. Structurally, we found out that it can't carry the load. We did have that looked at. This area here, as I said, will be records and will be the downstairs lobby area. This will stay as the gym, and this lobby fire, all the way over. And in the back, this was added, and like I said, we gathered the Sally Port, and we picked up all the essential services for the building that really don't help the police department do our job. The Sally Port hopefully will be added to, pushed out so that we'll be able to at least have distance within the building. We won't have the width we need, but we certainly will have the length that we need to service our prisoners. I know there's a lot of questions, and that's the end of the PowerPoint. But I will tell you, I think everybody should take a look at this picture because this pretty much tells what it is. This is the old building, this entire building. This area here is the lobby. The Wakefield Police Department gained nothing 15 years ago. The town built an incredible fire facility. They should be proud of that. But they did not spend the money on the police side. I'm here for you to talk to you tonight with the hope that you'll approve $8 million to turn that police station into what it should be, where we should be in policing in 2018, and to build it for the future. It's not getting any cheaper. It's not getting any less expensive. And I'm going to tell you, your police department can't shrink it anymore. We're barely holding our own. We're going to be going forward for the services we provide as a certified police department. We need a updated, larger facility. Many of you in this room know I travel this country talking to other police chiefs about leadership issues. And I've been in hundreds of police stations around the United States and to some degree in Europe. And I have never seen a dispatch area on a second floor. I have never seen a building so small and fragmented, even in some of the smallest towns in rural America. So I'm here tonight. I certainly want to answer any questions you have. Chief Sullivan's here with me to talk about whatever questions you as a community have, and hopefully you'll understand and see why we're standing here tonight asking for the town to support basically renovating and adding on to a facility that is really deficient for an agency that serves you every day. Thank you.
Mr. Sherman.
The Finance Committee debated this one at significant length, because all of us remembered what had transpired just a few years ago, and I'm sure most of you in this audience say, wait a minute, we just built this public safety building, why are we renovating it? We did spend a lot of time, some of us actually went up and looked at the building, and we understand with the regrets that we really need to make this change. The Finance Committee supported it unanimously, and we encourage town meeting to approve the $8 million to fix this building. Thank you.
Comments on the motion before you under Article 8? In the South.
Bob McLaughlin, 376 Water Street. Well, first of all, I don't think there's a person in this room or in the audience that doesn't support what the police and the fire department does for Wakefield. Honestly, you guys have done a great job, and you know, we want to support your facilities, but, and here comes the but. Back in 2004, when this building was opened up, the town budget, the operating budget for the town of Wakefield was $55 million. 14 years later, we're up to $95 million in just 14 years. And it's just getting almost impossible for some of these taxpayers to foot the bill for some of these projects. We also have, right now we're looking at the vocational school. It's been approved, so we're going to be paying for that one shortly. I don't have a problem with it, but that's online. We're looking at a high school that down the road, as soon as that gets approved, we're going to be funding that. The Greenwood School has to get replaced at some point. That's coming down the line. And then the DPW facility, that's coming down the line. So then you add the $8 million for this project, plus we haven't finished paying for the original 8. That's a lot of money. So my solution, what I would like to see, at this point anyway, unless we get some real fiscal improvement on our tax rates, again, we're $95 million this year, would be, I would like to put if it was my wish, unfortunately, we can't get you everything, but what I would like to do is put the repairs and the upgrades and pay that out of the capital outlay account over the next few years, and then come back at a future town meeting and deal with manning the lobby, which is really the biggest issue here. And that all started because of the civilian dispatchers. You know, we're originally supposed to be on the first floor, and that never materialized. And and that's why that problem exists up on the second floor. But I'm not in favor of changing the footprint of the building just because of the costs at this point right now. So that's my comment for now, and we'll see what everybody else has to say. Thank you.
In the South.
Christine DeFelice, 33 Lawrence Street. You talked a lot about the ventilation and the water problems. What have you done to rectify these, and how many years has this been going on that we never heard about any of them until the study was going to be done?
We've had issues in the building since it opened, relative to those 2 items that you talked about. And as I said earlier, we've addressed them, but we have been unable to fix them. We've been working with DPW. It's a recurring problem. We have to understand that they rehabbed a 68-year-old building. That doesn't mean that they took everything out of that building. So
right, but a lot of new systems were put in, and if the contractor was responsible for putting the new ones in, why weren't they held accountable for some of the things that aren't working?
I honestly can't, I'll be honest with you, I can't answer that question because I don't know the answer to that question. This building was built, the work that was done on the police side as well as the public safety building being put together was done before my tenure as chief. It was done before probably 80% of the staff that works in the police department now was there. So I don't have an answer for that, but I will tell you this, I can tell you this, that again, this is cumulative, and we're talking about spatial needs. Some things probably could be fixed, not for free, they cost a lot of money to fix stuff, but I'm talking about spatial needs, and that's why we're talking about moving the building out and changing the interior flow of the building and adding the 40% that we need as an agency to function. If we don't do this, the prices on these construction projects, increase about 4% every 6 months. This building, this 1950 police station, is going to have to be either replaced or remodeled and added onto at some point. It's not
And
going to make
instead of
25 or
Okay,
50
whoa.
years.
Okay, let's answer. Your next question or your next comment?
Well, and just as far as the dead lobby space now, why can't you just fix that into a better usable space instead of spending $8 million on a building that was built just a few years ago? And it seems as though the offices that people can share an office, because they're, most of the time, except for probably the dispatcher and the sergeant or the lieutenant in charge of the shift, should be out on the street. So you don't need a lot of office space as it is.
Okay, the question
But
is the
I
lobby.
I would urge you to vote no on this.
Okay,
Thank
Well,
you.
can I answer her question, Ms. Moderator?
she made a comment. You're all set. I'm sure you've covered it. In the north,
Pat Galani from 11 Bennett Street. I appreciate the service of the police and the fire.
Thank you.
And I understand that it is a health hazard, breathing in fumes that are coming from the fire station. I came into the building a little late. I don't know if did you show a floor plan at all for the proposed new construction? No. Do you have a floor plan?
I couldn't quite hear you, sir. Could you try it again?
Just wondering if you
was
have
there a floor plan for the proposed? There isn't.
no floor
Is there a
plan?
floor plan for the proposal?
Yes. Yes, we have floor
Oh,
plans
but
for
it
the
wasn't a
study.
slide up here. No, hold on.
the study.
Hold on. Was there a slide of the proposed floor plan put up here?
I did not put one up.
Okay, so no, there wasn't.
Well, I'm just proposing that maybe before we vote on $8 million, that we maybe just have a look at I understand that the building is needed, but just have a look at the floor plan.
This
That's
is,
all.
bear in mind-
Whoa, there's not a question, chief. We'll be here all night. So you say vote no unless there was a floor plan. Is that your comment?
No, I'm just saying that before we vote at all, that there
Okay.
should be a floor plan showed so we know what we're voting on.
Is there a floor plan available?
Yes, there is. I have one. Yes, I can show that.
Yeah, we just should show it, that's all.
Can
Would
you
you
show
like-
it up here?
I understand that it's
Oh,
a health hazard
Okay.
and something has to be done.
I can show that.
Okay.
Would you like to
Thank-
see it, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, now bear in mind, this is a feasibility study. So what is up here is, again, a feasibility study. This is by no means the end, probably by no means the beginning, because if we're afforded the money, this all has to go out to bid. We have to put an RFP, we have to bid it out, and we have to go through the process. So this is like ground zero, this is ground one. This is the first floor. This is the community room, as you know it today. It's probably very difficult for you to see, but I'll try to help you with it. This is the entrance to the community room as you know it today. What we're going to do is, this is the old entrance, the entrance we're using today. This area will be turned into the records area with access here. Our firearms area here, right in here. This is dispatch. So when you walk in the building, it's a straight walk into police dispatch. On the right here is the fire side. This is the fire administration side. So people who are coming into the building will have direct access to the fire administration side. Restrooms here. And then this is the hallway currently that goes down into the fire side of the building. Goes by the chief's office, training room. This here, like I said, would be the new dispatch. This area out back would be some of the ancillary facilities that go with dispatch, because dispatch is a secure area. You have to have facilities in there, restrooms for the staff. This is all handicapped accessible. On the basement floor level, as we know it now, this becomes general evidence. And there's a reason for that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Locker rooms that are across the hall now, we're gonna be moved into this area. This area here is the bump out area, which puts us in line with the fire side of the building. Women's locker room on this side, the central corridor, which we have now, a closet, which, by the way, there's only 2 closets in the whole police side of the building right now, today, as we speak. That's one, that's an addition. And over here is the men's locker room. You're gonna say, why 2 locker rooms? This locker room, as it is now, doesn't work. So the best thing to do administratively, and I can tell you this after 41 years of service, is the command officers have to be on this side. The reason being, there's a lot of discussions that go on in locker rooms, and superior officers sometimes have to talk about superior officer stuff, and it becomes an issue. So the patrol officers have one side, and believe me, this is not a new idea. This is something that goes on in police stations around the world. Then there's an evidence processing room here. So when the cruisers come in, when the officers come in with evidence, they'll come down a half a flight of stairs, because the building's off-centered, come down a half a flight of stairs, go into evidence, log their evidence, and then put it into evidence storage. I'll tell you that the thing that keeps chiefs up at night is the evidence room. Now, with the new statute signed by the governor, they're going to be audited every year, and a full forensic audit every 5 years. So it's imperative that evidence be handled in the correct way. As it is now, the officers come in, they get down a half a flight, they log it in, they go up 3 flights. That is a problem for us operationally with contamination of evidence. That's it briefly in a nutshell. Again, I'll move forward. The second floor, this is what is the operations floor right now. You can see you're coming up the stairs, you come up the stairwell, the elevator is right there. We've changed this around. There's a roll call room up there where we can now, this is all on one floor, it keeps everything together. A roll call room right there, that's a stairwell. And we've broken this out. We'll be moving detectives where they should be in the operational side of the building. Detective storage, which they don't have now. The detectives conference room, an interrogation room, which they don't have now. There's patrol storage, which is now the OIC's office. And we have the evidence lab, which we have now on the 3rd floor. We have to move it down. But also there's a detectives area in here, a small conference room for interviews, hiring, whatever detectives want to have a conference in there or have a conversation. To the right of that, which would be south on the building, is our family services office, the clinician, there's a corridor there, and more family services, which would help us talk when we're talking to domestic violence victims, all the things that family services do, dealing with the elderly. This is accessible by an elevator, again, handicapped accessible, as it is now, but we can provide the services in confidence that we have to. Confidence is the biggest piece, because when people come into the police station, it's a confidential area, it's secured for your benefit as well as ours. And then the top floor, I hope this is helping you, but the top floor, you come up the stairwell, this now is the evidence room now. That's going to be, hopefully, would be redone. Our radio and IT room will still be pretty much where it is. We have active storage. There's an office right in here that would be used by patrol. The sergeant's office, which they do not have now. They have no place in the building to do any sergeant's work. Bear in mind, sergeants are administrative officers in the police department. They have command responsibility, and they need the room commensurate with their responsibility. There's restrooms, stairwell, storage, which we don't have. The deputy chief's office would be here. The chief's office would be here with a small conference room. The administrators, the administrative assistant room would be here with room for expansion. We only have one civilian employee that works in the police department. We're the only department I've seen in the world of our size with one administrative person. Our administrative person does everything and then some. As a result of having one, command officers are doing administrators' work. There's a conference room, then the day commander, the day lieutenant, the evening lieutenant, which sometimes cross over, and then this office down here is to be used by other command officers. And then there's storage here, corridor, and more storage, something we don't have at all. And that's pretty much it. I hope that
Don't worry
answers
about
your
the
question.
toilets. Tony. Yeah, you next.
Tony Longo, 15 Fell Street. I'm going to urge you to support this question. In 1950, we had approximately 25 officers in town. In 2018, we have 47 officers on staff. That's a 90% increase. We're looking at the same space we had back in 1950. So those spatial issues, I think we need to be addressed sooner rather than later. Some of the safety issues I see, the prisoner bay, if I have that correct, we'll have the prison to open air so they can just run.
That's correct.
A lobby, if you're a citizen, you go in there, if you're being harassed or chased, you feel threatened, you go in there, you want to speak to an officer right away and not pick up a phone, that needs to be addressed right away. I'm a parent of a 14-year-old girl. God forbid she have to use that for some reason. I want her to be safe. And lastly, the ventilation issues needs to be addressed. So again, folks, I urge your support for this question. Thank you.
In the south.
Hi, Robert Mitchell, 6 Balding Street. I just want to thank Police and Fire Department for your great service. We are lucky to have you in this town. I feel like this is a little bit of a deja vu from the prior expansion of the building, in that I believe at that point the police chief was ready to retire and near his retirement, and we built the building. There's a lot of ambiguous questions about the dispatch area. We all agree that was a boondoggle. And we designed it sort of under his specs. May I ask you, Chief Smith, when you're planning on retiring? Through the moderator.
You trying to get rid of me?
No, you're excellent, and I sincerely mean that, no.
By statute, I have to retire in 2019.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep. And I just feel my other concern is this is really long-term and taking out of this specific article tonight, is that the lot size we have up there, when you do the 8 million, there is nothing left. That lot is full of capacity. And if 14 years ago we were insufficient, and today, the numbers I heard you say on square footage, it's really adequate for a police force of this current size. Even this proposed building for 8 million is on the short side of that. In 14 short years, I can't predict the future. I'm highly concerned that in 14 years from now, if God willing I'm still alive, that footprint is going to be insufficient, and we're going to have to build a new building, either split them or whatever. We're already maxed out on the lot size. I have to ask, for instance, I grew up in Marblehead. Still the original police station I learned how to shoot a .22 at when I was about 11 years old. Still the same size. I know Saugus built a new police station on a larger lot. I believe, I don't know the exact price, but I believe they built the whole facility for less than $8 million because it was new construction. To take a house and add a front onto it, an independent building, and add a back onto it as an independent building, and leave the structure in the middle. I mean, my house has 6 additions on it from the 1800s. It's not the best way to do it over time. And at the end of that, we're going to have this real hodgepodge situation is why we're here right now, as a matter of fact. I'm not predicting the future, I'm explaining the current. A couple questions. So there's about 47 police in total. How many on a shift? There's probably 15 or so.
Well, that's really, I can't give you an abstract, I can't give you a hard number.
Okay.
Because it depends on the day of the week, the activity,
Yeah.
Ongoing events, weather.
Sure.
We have a certain number of patrols scheduled every day. That does not include officers going to court. doesn't include officers going to work details, it doesn't include officers who are brought in to follow up on an investigation. I have seen conversations about 3 or 4 officers and nobody being there in the building during the day. That is a very active building, and it's incredibly active during the days and during the first half. Officers many times are called back to work for various reasons. So it's a bee's nest. So I can't say to you honestly.
You have
and I
a
won't-
roster on who's employed. How many on shift
Hold
right
on, hold
now?
on, hold on, hold on. Let me-
I'm sorry, how many-
Ballpark
It's
figure,
taking
how
my
many on a
time.
shift? Chief.
What is
Whoa,
your-
whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, whoa. You ask a question, he answers, and then you wait for his answer to end. How many ballpark on a shift? Maybe that'll help answer his question.
How many what?
Ballpark figure on a shift. I think he's asking how many on a shift. Average, ballpark.
I can tell you during the average day and evening shift, we could have anywhere between 4, 5 on the road. That doesn't count the admin staff. So we could be up to 12 to 14 with the ancillary services, detectives, our school resource officers, our family service officer. So the number, I'm trying to give you an accurate number, but it's a moving target. The bottom
Average.
line is it changes. It can change in an hour.
Okay, average.
The average could easily be between 8 or 9 officers.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
gonna be a third, okay. How many are in the building right now?
Right this minute?
Yeah,
If you
just
know.
ballpark.
If you know.
I can't tell you right now. They could
Okay.
be in there doing reports, they could be
Next
doing
question.
You don't know?
investigations.
Next question.
Okay.
You don't know.
Okay, I thought you'd know that.
I wish I knew.
Okay. It bothers me a lot that the folks inside the building, according to the presentation, that I support 100%, are in a situation where they're breathing toxic fumes, where the HVAC system is dirty, where the plumbing shuts off, where they feel the dispatch area is architected so it's difficult to serve incoming public. It's frustrating, and roof leaks. I mean, how many people up there maintain their homes or their investment property at this level? I own investment property. I'd be in trouble with the state if I had this much neglect in the building. So it just troubles me that we're hearing, if it's true that there's this much neglect, it doesn't make me feel good about the guys and the ladies working in that building. Forget the $8 million. And that's what I'm hearing. Just a couple of things. I agree, and I totally agree with the punch list of things that should be resolved. Couldn't agree more. The dispatch area needs to be redone and all the high maintenance levels. So I couldn't agree more, and that should certainly be funded, and I'm a cheerleader for all that. No issue there.
1 minute.
Yeah, thank you. I'm concerned about expanding the footprint of that building, especially in such a hodgepodge way, basically building a second building on the front of it, independent structure, a third building on the back of it, independent structure, and then weaving that together on a lot size that personally I think is insufficient. If we were going to build a public safety building today for $25 million, we would not choose a lot of that size. There's just no way. I think there's some creative options for maybe doing an annex for you guys for some of the storage. I agree the storage is tight there, and that should be remedied. I don't know what the options are. Was there any, and just quickly, maybe it's the
Very quickly.
FinCom or the Public Building Commission, was there any written documents on the costs of keeping the footprint as it is and resolving all these issues and maybe creating some space for you guys just through
Joe,
better
can you answer
storage
that?
systems and that
Yeah.
type of thing? And if you have anything that's written that's signed by a certified engineer or architect that could attest to this, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
That's the presentation I would like. Thank you.
Joe, can you answer that?
The architect HKC Associates provided probably about 10 different options altogether. Variations on keeping one area, not keeping another area, doing away with the community room, not doing away with the community room, changing the entrance here, changing the entrance there. Eventually, the Permanent Building Committee, in coordination with the police and the fire department and the architects, felt that this particular option that you saw, the floor plan, was the best one available. Thanks.
Thanks.
Two sentences? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You're way over. Go ahead.
I just urge you to vote no, and I would love to see another presentation on expanding the size of the footprint and maybe using the money in the future for a new facility for one of you guys to split it and do something really nice. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Ann Santos, 39 Converse Street. It's hard to come back and ask for $8 million when this building was renovated only 15 years ago, but I do think we do things differently now. The way it was done 15 years ago, our building committees weren't as collaborative or connected to all the projects that were happening in town. I think there was a mindset that perhaps not with the best practices in mind with some of the law enforcement thoughts that went into the building 15 years ago. I'm looking at it from the lens, and I've taken an extensive tour through the building. As certainly someone on town council who wants to be responsible with my money as well as yours, but also through the lens of a former assistant district attorney who's been in most of the police departments in this, and certainly in Middlesex County, and have conducted many interviews, including Wakefield several years ago, of victims and family members who are in crisis. My biggest concern when looking at the building was the space issue, but certainly from a liability and a confidentiality point of view. The two interview rooms that I saw, one is off of the lobby, which does not provide great space for someone who is in crisis. So if you can imagine that, certainly my job was to interview a child who had been assaulted or a spouse who had been assaulted, to try to separate people, to try to interview them when they are already in crisis and hearing people come in and out of the lobby. I've never seen that before. The interview rooms are always away so people can have privacy, so they can calm down and the police can do their job to do their best interviews. I was shocked at the evidence, how the evidence was stored. Not that the evidence is not secure, because it is, but the fact that the record room is so far away from where the evidence room is now is a problem for, speaking as a prosecutor, arguments of chain of custody and things like that. And I know Wakefield is doing a great job, but it just doesn't make sense from a best practices point of view. I think we have a police department who is so focused on the community, and we have seen that, and they have won awards, and we see our officers go out into the community and into the schools, and I don't think they can do their job right now if they need to go back to the police department and do more thorough investigations. And I can appreciate what people are saying, but I would urge a vote yes on this, because I think not just our police deserve better, but we deserve better. Just the lobby alone, you should never have to enter a police lobby and not have someone there to meet your needs. Thank you.
In the south.
Bronwyn Delavolpe, 8 Cyrus Street. Thank you for your presentation. I don't think that there's a person in this room that doesn't know that there are issues that need to be taken care of, and I'm one of them. There are deficiencies in that building, and they need to be taken care of. I think it's the mode in which we're approaching this that's a problem for many people. you know, many of us didn't see a floor plan until tonight. I haven't seen sort of a breakdown and not a blow-by-blow itemization, but you're handing us a bill for $8 million and we haven't seen a breakdown. We see $8 million. And maybe that's what it would take to do what the preferable thing that you would like to see done. But I don't think it's fair to ask this body to vote on this until we've had time to study a floor plan and to see an itemization of what the breakdown is. So, having said all that, yes, there are problems. Is there someone here through you, Mr. Moderator, who could answer the question? Is approximately 80%, do you think, of this would be the money, 80% of the money for correcting problems? Correcting problems as opposed to, so going back and correcting the mistakes that were made on this building.
Joe.
I'm not exactly sure, understand your question, but if you're 80% of the 8 million, is that what
Yes.
you're referring to? No, I think 80% of that is probably for the new space needs of the police department, not for any of the other problems. Those are something that would go hand in hand, because when you would build and put in more space, you're going to need a new HVAC system. You're going to need a new type of thing, which will solve some of those other problems. So the biggest issue is going to be adding the space that was needed for the police department that wasn't around in the 1990s.
Okay, but Chief Smith just told us that the building space was deficient on day one when he moved in. So is that not adding space? Is that not essentially paying for the mistake that there wasn't future space added to this building?
Due to the fact that I was the chairman of the Public Safety Building Committee back in the 1990s, I have a hard time admitting mistakes. But we were given the direction from the professionals at that time, the police chief at that time. We were given what the needs were for the police department at that time. The architects that were involved had been involved in numerous police and public safety buildings throughout Massachusetts, and it was their professional opinion at the time that was needed. But what wasn't around was there was no clinician, there was no family services, domestic abuse wasn't around. All of those things have changed significantly since the 1990s when this was designed and eventually built.
Thank you. Someone else before asked, and I'm not quite sure I heard the answer. Why has it taken 14 years for this to be addressed? If this has been ongoing, cumulative, why has it taken 14 years to have these things addressed, like the HVAC and so on and so forth?
That's easy. Can you imagine the position that would have been taken at this meeting if we walked into the Springtown meeting in 2004 and said we need a new police facility? It wouldn't have flown. So we did it the smart way. We lived with it. We tried to get accustomed to it. We confirmed in our mind as an agency, as a group of individuals, and as one group, that it would not work, so that when we knew the timing is always important, we knew that we had to wait and try to either grow into and grow out of that building. And we did that. And I can tell you that in June of 2004, I went to the selectmen, and I told the selectmen in a selectmen's meeting that the building was too small and the dispatch area was not working. And we had conversations, myself and others, the building committee and the selectmen, about the building and some of the issues with it. Now, having said that, policing, as Mr. Bertrand just said, has changed immeasurably since 2004. Our mission has changed, our focus has changed, our community has changed, our spatial needs have changed, and that's what we're here to talk about, is spatial needs. Not about sins of the past. I want to talk about spatial needs.
I understand, thank you. The van that you use to transport the prisoners, or where did you get that van?
That was actually given to us by the Middlesex County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, which is nice. However, I would rather buy you, with my tax dollars, a
Well,
van
van-
that will
but
fit
this-
into the
there's
salad
no-
court,
excuse me,
rather than,
Just a second, is there money for a van included in this proposal? No.
no. But
So,
I'm
all right,
arguing the point. I'm arguing the point, instead of expanding the footprint of the building, there are specific ways
Oh,
that we can
okay.
fix the existing problems that no one is denying exist. So I'm trying to use one example
Okay,
that.
understood. I
Okay,
just-
we
I
got
thought
the
maybe-
van free, that's wonderful. I'd rather spend tax money and get you a van that fits rather than extend the size of the building. Is it normal for police departments to have a gym?
Is it no, it's first
Is
of
it
all-
average, usual thing?
Yes.
It is,
But
okay.
bear in mind, that's common space shared by both firefighters and police officers.
That's fine, I just
Okay.
wanted to know if that was a normal,
Yep, it's
normal
common.
space thing that's needed. How long do you think, should this article pass, how long would construction take, and where would the police go during that time?
Joe?
Go.
Construction, length of
I can
construction
answer
is the
if you
permit
wish.
building committee. If either of you know, do you know? How long would construction take? Anybody know?
I do,
How long?
14 months.
Okay. Where would the police go?
We're going to try to stay on site.
Okay. You got about a minute, and I've cut out their answers too. You got one
Okay,
more minute.
Thank you.
Okay.
How many parking spaces will either be added or lost due to new construction should this article pass?
None,
None will be added or lost. Okay, thank you.
none whatsoever.
Okay. Would you say that the issues and the problems that you have outlined here tonight have severely impacted the quality of the work that the police do?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of that. Has what happened?
Would you say, in your opinion, that the problems and issues that you've outlined for us here tonight have those severely affected the quality of work for the police station, for the police in town?
It has
Yeah, no.
affected some of our operations, and we struggle through it on a daily basis.
Okay, but you said if it's only affecting you a little bit, I'd rather spend the $8 million on a brand-new facility.
I didn't say a little bit.
Okay, hold on. That's the answer. I've given you 6 minutes. I've cut out the answers too. You can
Okay.
always get back up again.
Thank you.
Thank you. In the north.
Hi, Dave Hamilton, 39 Bartley Street. I'm curious, just to touch on what a couple of people have mentioned, was a new site or new facility evaluated at all as part of the feasibility study?
Joe?
Back in the 1990s, we actually, one of the proposals from the old Public Safety Building Committee was to build the police station on North Ave, where that new thing is near here, the condos and retail, whatever, that particular site, and then to develop the area where the fire station was and the police station, to put the fire station there. In other words, separate the police and the fire station. That proposal went before the town on a vote after it passed by one vote in town meeting back in the 1990s. And it went before for a vote, and the proposal for that new police station received 20% of the vote in town. So that idea has come and gone.
Okay, so that was 20 years ago. But was that evaluated as part of this plan, or was that basically, that learning basically used to
No, because
eliminate that as a possibility?
you're talking, you'd have to purchase land,
Sure.
which was the issue before. You'd have to buy a land, you would then have to build a whole new one, and we're talking well above the $8 million, that's for
Okay.
sure.
Okay, I think my main concern is I don't doubt that the facility you have now is not not the facility you need or deserve. I am just concerned that the lot is limited spatially, and we might be in a position, if we throw $8 million now, 10 years down the line, we'll find the space is insufficient, and my main concern is that while you need the space, I'm just concerned that this isn't the, I want to make sure that we're making the best decision for the next 20 or 30 years, as opposed to the next like 10 to 15 years. That's my main concern.
Okay, thank you. In the south.
Thank you, Chief, for a great presentation.
And
appreciate
you
it.
are?
Thank you. Daniel Lieber, 1 Elm Street.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. You addressed the separation between the police department and fire department, and my understanding is that both of you chiefs standing next to each other, your offices are on opposite sides of the building, but the way that you're describing things, there's very little collaboration or insufficient for the expectations that have been set for a public safety building to address both needs. And one of the questions that I'm looking at is there the ability to do more collaboration with the current space as it currently exists, move walls, redesign parts of the building so that the necessary functions of the police department can be met along with the necessary functions of the fire department? There may be sacrifices such as community room and otherwise, but has that been sufficiently looked at so that we can use the building as it currently stands to meet the needs better?
I don't think I really understand what you're asking me.
Joe, do you understand that? Yeah, I think it's more of a building.
As I indicated earlier, we looked at those options where we would have to take away the community room, to use some of the area that was in the fire area, but it was felt by the fire chief and also by everyone involved that that would not be a good use, and especially to take away from the community room, which is used quite a lot, both by the departments and also obviously by the community, and is also used as an emergency type room in case of emergency situations. So that whole, all of those options that I indicated earlier was discussed by the Permanent Building Committee and came up with this option as the one that made the most sense.
What were the costs of the changes without changing the footprint of the building?
If you know.
There were never any without changing the footprint somewhat. We always had to change the footprint because we couldn't, as the chief indicated, you couldn't go up. One of the areas we wanted to see is if we could add a floor to the present police and fire station. However, when the structural study was done by the architects, that was not possible to do. We also looked at the possibility of doing stuff in the garage area, but in the garage area there are pillars that are holding up the floor of the fire truck, so we kind of didn't want to mess with that. So that kind of didn't work either. So we did look at all of those options, and the only one that made sense to us was to bump out the front area where there's that grassy area to add the space, because we couldn't go up, so we had to go out.
So what would the structural life be of the 1950 station that's still at the center of the police component?
That thing is structurally sound, to say the least. That
So
will be here another
is-
68 or more years. I don't think I'll be around.
We can all hope that we're all around. I'm not confident that many of us in this room will be at that point.
Maybe you will, but I won't.
Okay, let's move along.
One of
Dan,
the changes.
is that an actuarial topic? Kidding. Keep moving.
One of the changes that has happened since the study began is space has been freed up at the AmeriCal, which used to be actually an armory. So its history is similar in terms of certainly holding storage and armaments and so forth. Has there been any look at using space in the AmeriCal or otherwise repurposing other town space to satisfy some of these needs so that we can do this project at a lower cost? The idea here isn't to not do anything. It's to try and address this where we have so many capital needs. We've got fields that need to be done. We've got DPW buildings that will likely need to be replaced. We've got a high school that will likely need renovations or replacement. I'm looking and saying, I'm looking at this and thinking that in 14 years, we still have a mortgage on, bonds technically, but the equivalent of a mortgage on our current building. We're looking at spending roughly the same amount for an addition. In another 14 years, 15 years before these bonds are paid off, there may be a request to have another facility built just because of space needs. If we went from 25 officers up to 47, we go up to 60 officers, even with this addition, it will not be sufficient to meet the needs. And we are seeing increases in the population and increases in needs. So I'm trying to figure out if there's been a look at using other space, such as at the AmeriCal, for some of those pieces.
We have. First of all, storage space, we store off-site. We store some records, some equipment that can be stored. We do it now, we store off-site. In policing, much like the fire service, it is not, we don't operate with command staff being off-site. The nature of our business, the collaboration that goes on a daily basis between the command staff and the people that are on the street doing their jobs is essential to the operation of our agency and every agency. So we're not like many in the private sector where certain people are in certain buildings. What we're trying to do is not kick the can down the road anymore, and fix this once and for all. This building that we're talking about tonight is built, it will be built, if it's built, if we're allowed to build it, for the future. I'm a chief that's always looked around the corner, and I have a pretty good pulse on what's coming. And we're confident that the building we have, with the addition, will be the building that'll serve the town of Wakefield for years to come in the future. We did our homework on this one.
Next.
Appreciate that. A question for Chief Sullivan. Are there any...
I'll decide that.
Are there any changes that would be made
is.
with this that would affect the fire department? And is the fire department have any needs that would potentially be addressed or are anticipated anytime in the next 10 to 15 years?
Chief, can you answer that?
I'll do my best.
There you go. That's all we can ask.
Couple things. The fire department would benefit from, hopefully from a new front apparatus ramp. The old apparatus ramp, or the present apparatus ramp is settling to the point where the apparatus drops several inches when it pulls out of the station. Not good for apparatus that's fully loaded all the time. The security inside the fire department half of the building would be, especially the administrative section, would be increased significantly. People would now be coming up to a window. The way it is now, you come through an unlocked door to the window where the administrative secretary would handle inquiries from the public. Under the new lobby that is being built, you would come up to a window and essentially have no access to fire department personnel on the other side of the window, unless we chose to let you in. That's a noticeable improvement. We would also benefit tremendously from the overhaul that the building systems would get, heating, air conditioning, updates in lighting systems. The building would be greener, so we'd be hopefully equipped with some of those lighting systems that turn off when nobody's in the room for 10 minutes. Yeah, we stand to gain quite a bit. We will lose a little bit of office space, which we're gonna have to juggle around to accommodate. But overall, I think the fire department, its mission has primarily stayed the same over the last 15 years. We did plan, and we were allowed to plan because we were allowed to build a new building for the future. So if the question is, am I comfortable with the project the way it's proposed? Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a word, boys, over in the corner there. When we vote, you have to be seated to have your vote count. So you might want to start mingling on in with the rest of the crowd, or you're not going to get your vote counted.
One final question.
Whoa. Oh, yeah, you're pretty close here, Dan. I cut out your...
Hold
on a minute. Okay, you got about a minute.
Yep.
And I didn't count their answers.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
One final question here. How will this project, if it goes forward, be managed materially differently than the public safety building project 14 years ago, so that we don't actually encounter a situation similar to what we're in now? What material changes of personnel, changes of oversight, changes to contracts? What is the town actually currently planning to do materially differently? Because if we fund this, I certainly don't want to be here in another 14 years. I won't be here in 68, but in 14 years I probably will be. And I don't want to be having this request again.
Mr. Mayo, can you answer that question?
Yes, and I think the biggest evidence of that is the building you're standing in right now, Dan. Our permanent building committee is much better than it was years ago. Let's call a spade a spade. Very talented group. What they did with this building, what they did with the field projects at the high school, it's just a totally different process, totally different scrutiny that's going into it. We hire a owner's project manager now, is that what it's called? An owner's project manager that really is part and parcel of the project, not the old clerk of the works that really didn't get involved in it like the OPM does. So I think that they'll judge us on what's happened here in this building, and you'll see that with this public safety building as well.
And anything from a legal perspective where there was extensive litigation on that building, and there has been problems with this building as it relates to plumbing, and so I'm trying to protect the town.
That's your last question.
What building
you can
are you
get
talking
back
about
up.
litigation?
Hold on. This is your last question. You can get back
public
up.
safety building.
Oh, previously.
Correct.
Okay, well, I can speak to this one. I can't speak to the other.
Joe, can you speak to that? Yeah. As an attorney and a member of the committee.
As a member of the committee,
And an attorney.
the only issue was having to do with the painter at the public safety building. There was no litigation regarding the prior public safety building project that was completed in 2004.
Okay, so the answer that was given before that there were issues is, I'm now hearing conflict.
What issues?
Related to HVAC, and the roof and so forth, as.
There were no lawsuits or any claims made, no.
Okay, those should certainly have a lifespan much greater than 14 years. Thank you
No,
very
they
much.
don't. I can tell you this. Statute of repose, 8 years. I do quite a bit of construction law, Dan. 8 years, end of story if you don't bring a lawsuit. How's that? Free of charge. All right. In order, the way I've got it is, Mr. Donaco's next. This gentleman, where's Mrs. DeFelice? She's going. Yeah, you're going to be due second, so hold on. Yeah, no, you have to stand the whole time. You can go back second. Then here, Ed, are you looking to get up? Oh, the whole crew over here. Then here, so you're next. Mr. Donaco.
Paul Donaco, 17 Wiley Street. I'm going to ask that this body unanimously votes in favor of this project. I had the option of being allowed to do a walkthrough of the building. Not having been in the entire building in all the years that I've been a selectman, it was an eye-opening experience as to what was actually there and what the chief was trying to have his entire force utilize in a way that was productive and safe. If you look at the pictures that they're shown, the existing building did not change when they did the project in 2004. The same size maintained, but they just maybe remodeled the interior. Well, as the amount of personnel increased, the space became less available. The conditions inside, from the leaks, from lack of office space, I really didn't know much of that until we actually did that walkthrough. And I believe that walkthrough was open to the general public. Is that not correct? It was posted, so everyone had the opportunity well in advance. This isn't the first time they should have been hearing this. If they stayed off of Facebook and actually read the notices, they would actually have seen that they had the opportunity to see firsthand what is the issue in that building. So if you had that opportunity, like most of us did, you would see that there's a good case for redoing this. So they would actually be extending the building out, adding an addition on, providing more spatial area for the police department to be more adept in doing what they're doing now. They would have full capability of doing their job in a much open area. It wouldn't be as tight, it wouldn't be as cramped, it would be more secure, and that's what we're trying to do right now, is all safety. And not too long ago, with the advent of Facebook and eBay, we asked them to set aside an area for transactions to occur. So where's that location? In the lobby of the police departments all over the country. How are you going to do that at ours when the police officer isn't necessarily always available in that area? You're telling people to go there for safety, but who's going to be providing that safety if there's no one there? The new construction would allow that to happen. You would have an officer right there when you first enter at all times. It's safety, okay? And that's what I'm trying to drive the point on this now. So I am fully in favor of this whole project, and I hope that everyone here agrees with me and votes in favor of it. Thank you.
In the south, you're next.
Hi, I'm John Sophia, 6 Whittemore Terrace. Just to give an individual perspective on 8 million, what fraction of that is that of a year's annual property tax levy?
Steve,
Ballpark.
do you have a ballpark there?
Okay, it gives me a question, answer this question. This is not a debt exclusion or an override?
No, I understand.
Okay?
I understand.
So if the total tax levy for the town, let's say 62 million, that sound about right? 61, 62 million? So 8
Okay.
divided by 62 million.
So one might say it's like 12% of your property tax financed,
Okay?
sort of.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's good, thank you.
In the north.
Beth Carmen, Briarwood Lane. My husband and I just came here. We were home watching the Boston Celtics lose. And I was watching this with one ear and one eye, and we decided to come down because we really feel strongly about this $8 million. My husband and I moved to Wakefield almost 11 years ago. We've put no children through your school system, yet we voted to build a new Galvin school. We put no children through your school system, but we will have no problems with replacing your high school or doing anything else so that the children in this town, which is why we moved here, can get the services they need. When I first moved here, I volunteered on a committee, a technology committee, with a previous superintendent, and I was blown away by the lack of technology in this town. And in those few short years, as Dr. Smith can tell you, we got one-to-one everywhere. This town has come leaps and bounds. I'm on social media a lot, and all I hear is, there's a coyote in the backyard, call the police. There's a stray dog, call the police. There's a homeless person passed out in the square, call the police. They're the first person that you think of on the front lines when you need something and you want something. I personally had an experience with the police and the fire department 2 months ago when I had a medical emergency. My husband called 911 in the middle of the night. 2 fine officers showed up, 2 fine firefighters show up, 2 wonderful EMS showed up, and I was transferred to the hospital. Couldn't ask for anything more. You need to give these men and women that service us, because anytime you have a problem, the first thing you do is call the police. Give them what they need so they can function properly to continue serving us. Thank you.
Julie, you're next.
Thank you. Julie Smith-Galvin, 28 Grafton Street. As Paul mentioned, there was an opportunity to tour the public safety building, which I did in early March, and I just quickly wanted to reiterate a couple of things. I came away with 3 really important takeaways. First, that, as everybody has said here, we have an incredible police and fire department, very community-centric, and we really owe a lot to them, and they need a safe place to work. My second takeaway, and I think before I did the tour, I really thought it was mostly a construction deficiency issue, but as we've heard tonight, this is really a design issue. This building is inadequately designed for 21st century policing, and we really need to fix that. Thirdly, my third takeaway is the deficiencies. There are serious problems in this building. We spent about 3 hours doing that tour, and the pictures do not do it justice. I encourage people to really talk and see it, and we need to make sure that we do it. And so I hear everybody, and as the newest town councilor, this is frustrating and infuriating that we are in this position right now. But I really see this is a risk and a liability issue, and I don't think enough attention has been paid to that. We are going to have some serious risks, not only to our equipment and to our staff and to our community, but we're also going to have some liability if somebody comes in there and does not get the services that they need. And so this is a huge financial, reputational risk, and I encourage everybody to vote for this $8 million allocation. Thank you.
Ed, you're next. Peter, are you waiting to get up? Okay. Ed, you're next, then there, then there.
Good evening. I'm Ed Dombrowski of 15 Chestnut Street. I too had the opportunity to walk through and tour the facility, about a 3-hour tour, and was able to take a look at where the deficiencies lie. And I have heard from many of you in the weeks and months leading up to tonight, and I understand your frustration, and I understand your skepticism. And candidly, the town 14 years ago failed you, and it failed you by not using your tax dollars in the most responsible way. And there were deficiencies. There are a number of deficiencies that exist structurally, mechanically. Systems that should be working are not. And so the question that I had at then Board of Selectmen meeting was, what are we going to do differently this time to make sure that the same mistakes aren't made again? I've spoken with the chief about this. I've spoken with our town administrator. Bear in mind that none of the town council sitting here today was on 14 years ago. Town administrator was not here 14 years ago. But that doesn't change the fact that it's still tax dollars that were not spent as smart and efficiently and effectively as they should have or could have been. So I stand here tonight saying that if you support this project, you need to hold your town leadership to account. We appoint the Permanent Building Committee. The Permanent Building Committee has to prove that it's doing the best job that it can do, and we have the best, most efficient use of every tax dollar that's being spent here. So I respect and appreciate the skepticism. I have shared it. Having toured the facility, this is necessary. We have an accredited police department, one of only about 80 departments in the entire Commonwealth. We have top-rate men and women that serve us and protect us every day. And they need this to be able to do their job, just like all of us need, in our own respective capacities, the space and the working, offices or environments to do ours. So I would encourage you to vote in favor of this expenditure, but I would also encourage you to make sure that throughout this process, everyone is held to account. It includes myself, everyone on town council, everyone on permanent building committee, because it is your tax dollars, and this is a major ask, and I recognize that. I understand all the concerns that have been raised, all the options that have been considered, and this looks to be the best option to try to remedy a situation that unfortunately we find ourselves in, at least in part, because of what had not been done properly previously. We have a great expansion opportunity. Community policing has changed over the last 14 years, but a lot of the structural and mechanical system issues that we are experiencing today, we should not be. And 14 years from now, I don't want to have the next town councilors up here trying to explain away why it's happened again. And I'm committed to making sure that that is the case, and I'm sure that the rest of the town council is as well. So with that, I ask that you vote with the confidence that we're going to make sure that it's done right, because it will not be done wrong again. Thank you.
In the north.
Oscar Cortez, 5 Fairview Drive. I want to say thank you for giving us all the details on the planning. I can see that there was a lot of work put into it. I can feel the pain, right, that the constraints in the building have put in the police department. But I do have a question. How does the current constraints affect the police work outside of the building? I wonder if you could share 1 or 2 concrete examples of things that have happened recently that you could correlate to the conditions in the building. And I understand there are private names and things like that, but can you share with us 1 or 2 concrete examples on where the building conditions had affected the police work outside of the building?
Chief.
Mr. Moderator, you'll have to repeat that question.
Conditions, how do the conditions as they exist in the building impact policing outside the building? 1 or 2 examples.
A couple of examples. I'm going to turn it around a little bit, because people come from the outside into the building. So when we have victims come into the building, we don't have secure areas to talk to victims. One of our speakers earlier mentioned that as a prosecutor. That is a huge impact. When we have people that come in, victims of sexual assault, yes, this is Wakefield, it happens. So the conditions inside the building impact the community as a whole because we can't ensure confidentiality, we can't ensure security to those people. Sometimes we have to use our cruisers to have conversations because of what we don't have, what we need, and the equipment that, I shouldn't say the equipment, the spatial needs that we need. It's very difficult, it's very taxing for our officers. And I'll give you another example. When you come into the building, again, I have to turn it around, but when you come into the building and you don't call 911 and we don't come out to you, you come to us, you have to sit basically on a park bench in the lobby, which is the most degrading place in the world to sit until we can get an officer to come and speak with you. If the building was reconfigured the way that we want it, one would have room for that. Two would be able to put you in a room that's secure and hopefully, keep you or your wife or your daughter secure and removed from any embarrassment. Policing is a different creature, and we deal with this every day. So the answer to your question is what happens inside the building really impacts what happens outside of the building as far as when we're dealing with victims and witnesses and keeping them safe, secure, and confidential. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I actually have a follow-up question. Thank you very much. So has any of those cases resulted in someone, let's say, for example, not being arrested because the case didn't go through because someone overheard the conversation? Or does that resulted on someone not coming into the police department or leaving the building because they didn't feel safe?
The moderator.
If you know. Did somebody not get arrested because of inappropriate conversation, or did somebody leave the building because they didn't feel safe? If you know, specifically.
We've had people, I don't know, I can't give you a case where someone did not feel safe and they didn't go. I can't measure a non-event. Okay. But we have video of people as recent as this weekend who have come in the building on a Saturday. There's nobody there. Dispatchers are upstairs. This weekend actually came in, walked around, read all the signs. I don't know which language they were reading, but they read the signs, they looked at the phone, and they left. Now, we don't know if that person called us back on 911 to be serviced. We don't know if they just gave up and went elsewhere. We don't know. So we can't measure a non-event. But it's not uncommon for people to come into that lobby and be completely confused. And to me, that's a failure in service. We're service-related. And to me, when that happens, as a chief, and I can say this for every officer that works over there, that's a failure, and we haven't delivered a service that you people are paying us to do. And that's something I, as a chief, and our people want to correct, because we're a service-oriented business.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Lori, you're next, then Peter, then Maureen.
Laurie Hunt, One Terrace Court. So from what I'm hearing, if someone in this room, if someone in our community is the victim of a crime, unless they're the victim of that crime between 8 and 2:30, they're going to walk into the police station. No one's going to be there to help them. If that person needs family services or clinical services, this person who may have just been raped or been a victim of domestic violence gets to go into the basement in a closet and meet with a police officer. And then if they're able to arrest this person that did whatever it was to the victim, there's a chance that they can escape when you're taking them into the van because we don't have a secure door. Or better yet, you gather some evidence and their attorney can fight in court that maybe it was contaminated because we don't have the proper way to handle it. I don't understand how this makes sense, that anybody wouldn't support this. It's a lot of money. It's unfortunate that we have to spend this money again when we just did, but none of this makes sense to me not to support something like this. Thank you.
Is somebody waiting there? I can't see. Are you waiting? No. Have you been up yet? Okay, you're up.
Hi, Deb Butler, 220 Main Street. So I was super conflicted about this. I went on the tour as well, and I think it's so easy to pick it apart and say, well, why don't, you know, myself included, like, why can't you store your records off-site, and why can't you go here, and well, what about the cage? Why isn't it cleaned out, and what are the responsibilities? And but something you said tonight, Chief Smith, is about, and Lori just mentioned it, is the family resource component. A lot of people don't go to the police station just once. It's not one 911 call. It's a lot of women in this community, they do child custody swaps at the police station. There's a lot of drug addiction. There are moms trying to get help for their children. And like, I can't be on either side of this because I'm so hearing both of it. But the one piece that strikes me is that tiny little veal pen of a closet on the 3rd floor. I cried during the tour when I thought about the fact that someone in peril in our community is literally in this tiny little closet asking for service from a resource officer and feeling it is the most vulnerable that someone is. They are actually not the criminal, they're the victim. And they're in the worst possible corner of your station. So I can't say for that reason alone, I want you to have $8 million, but that is a very compelling argument for me. Everything else, the ventilation, I want you to have everything you want. I really wish you had renovated the herd, I wish you had used the AmeriCal, all of those things, but I do understand, and I'm listening to you tonight, and I'm hearing you saying, like, we can't serve these people outside of the building, right? We can't have our resource officer over at the white building across from the, what is that building? The one you guys own, it's like the town hall is there and there's office space. You really can't have these people anywhere else, right?
Right.
It's a true question. And you really can't store records anywhere else? You can't, it's a real question, like, because I want you to convince me.
Can you store them anywhere
I want to
else?
raise my hand yes for you. I just want to be convinced on these 2 points.
Can we store records anywhere else?
Yeah, like the record storage downstairs, you couldn't have cleared that out and had a guy in there.
Let me explain the record space
Yes,
for you.
please.
and
Thank you.
Maybe this will dispel it. We do store off-site. What we can store off-site, we try to store off-site, but we have to understand that there are records that we cannot store off-site because of the sensitivity of them, because they're open cases from 40 years ago. If you read this morning, yesterday's Globe, there's an article about a state trooper getting murdered, and they talk about opening the case 40 years later. We have to keep those records. Those are evidence. We have to keep them intact and in a secure part of the building. Now, I know the question's going to come up. What about electronic storage? We do store our data electronically going forward, but we can't store everything electronically for a number of reasons. One, time to locate it. Some of the records are very old and not in our database. The time to locate, dig those records out, manpower is incredible to do this. By the way, the number of public records requests we've received since the change in the law is increased 5-fold. So there are certain records that we have and we will continue to keep on site. Those that we can, we store off-site. We do store a lot of stuff off-site.
Right.
And we've addressed that because we realize our spatial deficiencies and our spatial needs.
Right. And then I'll finish up, Bill, thank you. As a layperson, when you see it, it's very easy to look at the punch list and problem solve for you. Like, oh, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. When you're presenting tonight and you're like, listen, this is why we can't do it, that's the most valuable. So again, the information exchange, transparency, it was very difficult other than the 3-hour tour, which sounds like Gilligan's Island. Other than that tour, I couldn't access this information. I still had follow-up questions. Other than trotting to Steve's office, I wasn't really able to get a lot of input from a lot of other people about it. So there is some element of information exchange that I wish we had been able to have even more of before tonight, but there's no other question. I think the family resource officer piece, I just have to keep bringing out that tiny little room. I'd like you to have more space for them.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you. In the south.
Elizabeth Lowry, 86 Green Street, a house that was built in 1860. I recognize that adding space, which we just did 2 years ago, makes a huge difference in your quality of life. My laundry room is not in the basement anymore, for example. makes a big difference. I get that. $8 million is a lot of money, and I think that if we had had more time to see this PowerPoint presentation on the town's website, that people could come here with fewer questions. And I'm wondering, why has this just come to light tonight? Why are we only seeing it for the first time tonight?
Steve. Oh, Joe, okay. Yeah.
The Permanent Building Committee submitted a complete report with the Board of Selectmen, or Town Council, or at the time, Board of Selectmen, last year, and I know it was televised. We also, through the police department, publicized to have a tour of the building, and that occurred a month and a half ago or so. The Permanent Building Committee has put this out there and been in front of the selectmen, and we did have the tour. I don't have control of the website, though.
That's really my main point, is the town has a website. I feel like this should have been up on it for months, or at least since, I think you said March was the walkthrough. I looked, I couldn't find it. My husband, who is a lot better at looking for things online than I am, couldn't find it either. So I just feel like by waiting until tonight, you've got all this emotion and all this stuff going on, and when we could have probably solved a lot of the problems or answered a lot of the questions ahead of time. And then maybe sort of a non sequitur, but not so much. The chief mentioned that some of these conversations happen in locker rooms. That's a little upsetting to me. You have conference rooms. If you're having a conversation in a locker room, are you not excluding your women officers?
No, I think what he was saying, let me see if I got this right, Chief.
I mean, if you're going to have a conference, have a conference.
I think what he said was when he showed you where the conference room was adjacent to the locker room, in other words, you could overhear. I think I was paying attention. Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that it? The locker room is located near the conference room?
Currently?
Yeah, you want to change it, right?
We want to change it, but I think I know what you're asking, is that we're talking about the change, as the moderator's talking about, is separating the superior officers from the patrol officers.
Having two separate locker rooms for the
It has
superiors.
nothing to do with gender. It has to do with conversation about management, not about gender, not about anything along that line. Superior officers have, command officers have different roles, and there's discussions they have to have about leadership, ongoing issues, training, could be anything. And sometimes those conversations shouldn't be in different places of the building, and we don't have. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that they have different responsibilities. So when they come to work, they're exchanging ideas or exchanging conversations. What happened on a shift before? Who are we looking for? Who's been taken off the street? Who is a victim? Who's a witness? Sometimes those conversations, for a number of reasons, really belong in a certain area of the building. That's what I was referring to.
Under what circumstances is the locker room the appropriate place for that?
Is it? If it's
are you saying that you have no female command officers?
We do not have any female command officers.
Is there room for there to become a female command officer if you are having important meetings in a locker room?
We're not having, I think maybe I'm not doing a good job explaining this. We're not having important meetings in the locker rooms.
No, you're having good old boy talk.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, okay. All right.
I didn't hear you. Can you say it again?
I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic,
Yeah,
and I don't want to do that. It was really disturbing to me to hear that you're having official business taking place in the locker room.
Building, yeah.
And my only other question is, how, and maybe I missed this, how did from the floor plan that I saw, it seemed like that was like an architect's rendering, not rendering, a sort of a preliminary sketch, not an actual workup, not an actual plan. So how did we come up with the money?
Mr. Bertram can answer that.
Who said it would, I mean, how do we know it's going to be 8 million, not 14 million? Because once they start building, things happen.
We requested from the architects, they sent it out to a cost advisor that they do the estimation on all the costs, such as when they did the estimations for the cost of this building. The people that, you know, they have specialized firms that do that. And this went out to a cost estimator, and we received 3 different quotes, essentially, if you did it in 2018, if you did it in 2019, if you did it in 2000. That's the how we came about with the figure that we have.
Okay.
So it was done in a normal and usual standard practice to obtain, take a look at, you know, take this floor plan of the various floors and the work that needed to be done, and give us an estimate, and a very detailed and complete estimate, which is about 4 inches thick that we have.
Thank you. So we do think it will stay there, somewhere around 8?
That is correct. We actually...
that was my only concern. Thank you.
All right.
Peter.
Peter May, 12 Garden Lane. Chief Smith, I want to thank you for the presentation, great presentation. It is a shame we've gotten to this point where we're back again after 14 years and possibly $8 million, it looks like $8 million. I had a tour as well, the safety building, and just like everyone said, I'm not going to repeat everything. The town council, most have gotten up already, it may means next, but it's just, there's so many inadequacies, it's a shame. Safety issues for both the public and the police are unacceptable at this point in time. But this time we've gotten it right. I mean, that's the positive point we're at now. I wanted to do a little twist since everyone's still in my thunder from earlier conversations, but liability-wise, I've worked for insurance companies the last 30 years, and liability-wise, actually I've underwritten the insurance for the National Association for the Chiefs of Police. I think Chief Smith's familiar with that place in Florida, as well as a number of municipalities. But liability-wise, I can't tell you how much of a nightmare that is, just walking into that lobby. When I go to see the chief, whether it's 8 in the morning or 8 at night, you have to get to the phone. And when you get to the phone, you might have to wait, you know, maybe 30 seconds for someone to pick up, maybe not. But also, it may be a minute or two if someone was going to run down and help me. If I was in trouble, if I was running into that building, if someone was chasing me into that building with a gun or a knife, an assault taking place in a police station, you're talking $5 to $10 million for the municipality. Even with some caps, you're going to pay a lot of money. That by itself is, without all the other hundreds of things that are wrong with the building, that by itself scares the living daylights out of me. The town can't afford not to make these changes. And I know it's a lot of money, and I think that being back here after 14 years is horrible. But we have gotten it right this time. I think everyone you've heard speak tonight has addressed all the different issues between pricing and what they're going to do. But I think that at this stage, we can't afford to have a liability lawsuit as well. So I urge you to appropriate the $8 million for remodeling, reconstructing, overall repairs to the safety building. We really don't have a choice at this stage. And it's not going to be, I think as Dan mentioned earlier, we're not going to be back in 14 years. I think that we've got it right this time. And even though there's some similarities with the chief being forced to retire soon, I think that that's about it for the similarities. So I urge you to vote yes, and we'll get it right this time.
In the South. That's you.
14 years goes by very quickly.
And you are?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Luda Dovi-Dennis of 159 Broadway Street.
Thank you.
And I've been in town for 37 years. I love our police department. I had a stepson once who, enormous help. School system. It was a great place to be if you're in somewhat of a trouble, and then the ambulances that came to my house. But I have a question. Have we considered a new building during this time? Because
Joe.
I really feel like I know we considered it last time, it didn't pass. And also, the second part of that question is, would there be money from the feds or the state if it were a new, more up-to-date building to start with?
As far as from the feds of the state, I'm unaware of any grant money or any other thing of that nature whatsoever. We did, because of the prior experience and because of where we would have to, because there is no really buildable lots in town, so to speak, you would have to buy land, and the cost, I think, would be, considering what we did 14 years ago, I think the cost would be well in excess of the $8 million. So we, part of the building committee, thought that the best and the option would be to do something within that same lot area.
How much did the Elizabeth Boyd home go in money, do you know? Does
No, I
anybody
do
know?
not.
I know it's already gone, but around the same time period that you were considering these renovations. I'm just saying, land is going to keep going up and up and up. I think the best thing would be to build a new building somewhere in town. I'm sure there's some land somewhere that can be used. And yes, it might cost several million for the land, but these developers seem to have money coming in, creating new buildings. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Excellent.
In the north.
Thank you. David Watts Jr., 17 Greenwood Avenue. In response to an earlier speaker, there have been a number of available resources on this project for months now. Town Administrator's Report, which is a monthly show on WCAT, talked about it at length. It was on for a month in rotation. There has been a show with the two chiefs talking about this in detail on WCAT and on their YouTube channel for about 5 weeks now, and it's going to stay on there until this article is voted. So there have been places where you could get the information that you needed well before annual town meeting. 2 speakers ago from the town council may have answered this question, but, and this is one of my concerns, is there any way that we can really peg the town's liabilities if we don't do this project? $8 million is a lot of money. It's not going to get any cheaper if we delay. But what are the specific liabilities that this town faces if we don't do something? Thank you.
Okay. Chief, specific liabilities.
One of the biggest liabilities right now is the reception area. That's first and foremost, is the lobby. We cannot provide safety services. There's 2 first responders in this town, police and fire, and neither one of us could provide emergency services after hours based on that building. So if somebody comes in, again, we're a safe haven community. If somebody walks into that police station, I shouldn't say that, into the public safety building in the middle of the night or noon on a Saturday like they did last week, there's no guarantee that they're going to run into a police officer who will be there in a timely manner. Or if they come in and report a medical event that happened outside that we're unaware of, they have to pick up the phone, they have to call upstairs. If one officer is on the desk because the other officer could be attending to a prisoner, could be attending to meals, a medical aid, could be in the bathroom, that presents a problem because that officer cannot leave dispatch because we're the only PSAP in town. The only place 911 calls go in the town of Wakefield is in the Wakefield Police Department side of the building. That is a huge, Mr. Watts, that's a huge liability for the town because if I lost a loved one because of that, you'd be talking to a lawyer with a lot of money, with a lot of zeros on the back end of that. The flip side of that is, and we talked about this earlier, evidentiary responsibility. We have a responsibility to protect your property. And if your property, the community's property, comes into the police station, we have a responsibility, both moral and legal, to protect that property. From a prosecutorial side, we have a responsibility to protect that rape kit, to protect the evidence from your break in your house, to protect the evidence from an OUI. If we can't process that evidence, we lose cases, and there's liability affixed to that, especially if there's an injury or a death that resulted in that case. I can give you I could go on all night about liability.
I know.
I feel like a voice is coming from
Yes,
above
it is.
here.
That's two good examples. Maureen.
So
are you done? Are you done, Mr. Watts?
Just a follow-up question, Mr. Moderator.
Do you want to still try and
Would-
run up? You trying to run up those ratings for WCAT anymore? Just wondering.
They do well enough on their own.
Okay.
Just a follow-up question, would it be appropriate for town council to also address this question?
Tom, potential liabilities.
Look, there are a lot of good reasons that you've heard tonight to improve the public safety building. Frankly, I don't think that the fear of dollar liability ought to be one of them. Under the Mass Tort Claims Act, Chapter 258, Section 10, you can't hold a municipality liable for the negligent failure to provide police service unless there was an express promise of such service. Now, maybe somebody who came running into the entryway thinking that had to be a safe place and found that it wasn't could make some kind of argument that there was an implied promise of safety. I think that's rather strained. Even if we were to lose on that, the liability would be capped at $100,000, and we have insurance for that kind of thing anyway. The kind of liability that is uncapped is for violation of civil rights, and that would require a plaintiff to prove that we had some kind of policy that led to the deprivation of an individual's civil rights. Again, sounds to me like a very strained argument, and we do have some insurance for that. My advice to the town council and to all my municipal clients is always do what you think is right. Don't act out of fear of dollar liability. And I think that's the way we should regard this issue tonight.
Thanks. Maureen.
Maureen Budd, 894 Main Street. So I also went on that tour that a couple of us mentioned, and I came away with 3 points that I just wanted to share. You know, we work really hard to make sure our town is welcoming, and a big part of that is our public safety building, where all residents can feel that they can go and that they'll be helped, whether it's getting a form, getting a report, or they're sharing something. And when you walk into that office space, right, when you walk into that building right now, that's not the case. This isn't about office space, it's about the appropriate design for a public safety building. The second takeaway that I had was, as an attorney, the water leaks and the evidence storage room should cause us concern. That's, you know, as an attorney, those are big questions. And then as someone who works every day with women who are impacted by domestic violence and substance abuse and mental illness, when I was on this tour, everyone had left, and a woman actually came in during those off hours, and 4 of our patrol officers were dealing with her, and I heard everything she was saying. And that causes me great concern that here was a woman coming to public safety like we want to encourage her to do, but there was no privacy, and I heard every single one of her complaints. And I saw our patrolman deal with it in a spectacular manner, but that lobby is not safe. And the last takeaway I'm just going to say is, again, none of us were here 14 years ago when this vote took place, but we've talked a lot about transparency and better communication, and I'm committed, just like Ed said earlier and other people have said, that we're gonna ask for updates, we're gonna ask for progress reports, we're gonna make sure that the money, all of our tax money, is well spent, but we have a public safety building, as some other folks have said here earlier, that represents our town and best serves our town. So thank you.
In the north.
Charlie McCauley, 32 Lawrence Street. First of all, I've listened to a lot of discussion tonight, which appears to be repetitive in a lot of what is being said. And my first thing on top of that is, I really do support the idea of that police station being modified. Whether this is the correct modification or not, only time will really tell. But something has to be done. I am quite familiar with the 1950 model station up there because I was around when it was built. I spent some uncomfortable moments in it shortly after it was built. I have seen some of the problems with the existing building. I did not go on a tour, but I have been in that lobby area. And I really would like to see it modified. But I am also a person that's been on a fixed income since this building was modified back in 2004. That fixed income only varies by what Social Security changes in my income. Unfortunately, the taxes in this town do not follow that same rule. They have gone up considerably. That is my main concern. What is the impact of this $8 million expenditure going to be on my income taxes going forward? I know that when the other bonds are paid off, my taxes aren't going to go down because the town will find a means of spending that money somewhere else. So therefore, this $8 million is an increase to my taxes. What is the projected increase going to be?
Excuse me, Mr. Sherman, would you care to answer that question? And just that question. You're next after that guy.
Okay.
I'm
So
keeping track up here.
Sure, I'll stand up
You
and
wanted
stay
to
here.
cut the line because you're a big
So,
shot.
first of all, I've done the math, and your taxes will not go up at all because of this, modification to the public safety building, because we're not doing this as something above Prop 2.5. We're not doing an override. We're not doing a debt exclusion. We're doing this project within our current revenue projections. So your taxes will not increase because of this. When the Finance Committee received this proposal and looked at it, it's a matter of setting priorities. We have a certain amount of money to spend. And the Finance Committee felt that this project had priority over some other projects, and hence our approval of this one. But we did not ask for any increases in taxes, so your tax bill will not change because of this project.
Thank you.
What I'm hearing then is that while there'll be no increase due to this project, other projects that were on the books are being deferred to a little later in time, which will be an increase in my taxes. So ultimately, there's going to be an increase in my taxes.
Not necessarily. Just because we've pushed out some other project doesn't necessarily mean those will not be within Prop 2.5 as well. It's only if we had to do something, for example, the Galvin here, this building, where we did a debt exclusion, or we do something like a Prop 2.5 override. But there's nothing on the table right now, there's nothing in our forecast at this moment that says we have to go beyond our 2.5 levy limit.
I appreciate your answer, and I hope I don't have to come back and ask you to modify it at some point in time. Thank you.
In the South. He was up before you. Are you questioning me? You that wrote a letter about questioning stuff?
Jeffrey
In the
Quinn,
South.
753 Main. So the current floor size is 47, as I understand it. Should these renovations be completed, what would be the new force capacity for the building? Is there a target number for that? And if not, what metric is being used to determine the new space would be big enough?
I would hope that the Wakefield Police Department will be at 50 personnel someday. And the reason being that, and the reason I say that, is because policing in America today has become the portal to social service. And everything that needs to be done, and I'm going to reiterate what somebody said earlier, falls at the feet of the police. And for us, in order to service the community in a proper way, at some point, I can see us serving a community of this size, of the demographics that we serve. 50 seems to be the right number. And again, that is because we're talking about the services that we have to provide. The opioid epidemic that's going on now, the rise in domestic violence. Yes, violent crime is down, but crime is up. And to be able to service that and have the personnel on the street, I think that 50 is a number. This building can support 50 personnel. And when we worked on this for the last 2 years, we had that number in the back of our brain.
And would there be any capacity beyond that? Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
we also have, and if you looked at the floor plan there, as part of that, just to make sure in case there's more family services, in case there's more domestic violence, in case there are more clinicians, we added space for expansion as well within the design.
Okay. And that number takes into account the, we're adding lots of units to Wakefield and the population is growing, so that would, we talk about the force being appropriate for the size of the town. That would then be appropriate for Wakefield increased population as well.
I'm confident that with that number, we will be where we should be, and we will be able to provide the services in the future. Everything we're talking about tonight, the mindset in my mind and the mindset of the police department and the people that I've been working with on this, we've been working with on this, is that we're talking about the future. We're not talking about building a building for today, we're talking about building a building for tomorrow. And I'm very confident that 50 is a number, a maximum number that will work for us with the change in policing and using the 21st century policing model.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Mr. Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dan Sherman, 16 High Street. One of the questions that came up probably about an hour ago now is how much this is going to cost. And I did some quick math back the envelope, and it's going to be about $35 of your tax bill will cover the cost of this per year for over a 20-year period. So we're not adding $35, but I'm saying out of whatever your property tax bill is, approximately $35 will be used to take care of this building and get it right.
Just want to make sure. Anybody else who hasn't gone yet? Have you gone already? Yeah, then you're up. Then you, yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Pat Demedy, 176 Main Street. My question that concerns me here is all this planning on a new building or a rehab building, we're rehabbing a rehab job. And I'm afraid that this could turn out to be less than what we're desired. My vote is to really look and spend the money, but spend it wisely with a clean sheet of paper. Thank you.
Okay, any other first timers? Anybody who hasn't been up?
John McLaughlin, 4 Foster's Lane.
Okay.
I just have a real concern about the way this previous building was put together and the lack of space right coming out of the gate. There's not enough room. Somebody needs to convince me that this isn't going to happen again. To me, this was poor planning. All these problems that I see with this building, it's just like, all right, you got a family, you're going to have 10 kids, and you design a 10-family house, and you get there, and the contractor says you get 2 bedrooms, and by the way, the garage is filled with cement. Can't use it. Doesn't make any sense. Now, in the original building, I remember going in there when it first opened up, and you get in that lobby, and you're lost. There's nobody there. Why wasn't that ever fixed? 14 years. You walk in there, and you're looking around. Who do I call? There's never been anybody there. I just don't understand why.
Is that a question?
Yeah. Why wasn't it ever fixed? Why wasn't something put there?
In 2004, when it was first opened up, there was a position for a police officer that, according to the police chief, Chief Doherty, who was here before, that it was going to be manned. But the problem was 2 things. There was going to be civilian dispatch that would allow, as I indicated in my opening remarks, for more uniformed personnel to be available, but that did not come about. There was a hope at that time also that there would be more police officers. to get it up to the 50 that the chief is talking about now, but due to economic times, the recession, et cetera, the lack of state money coming in, the town was not able to afford to do those things. Therefore, the best thing that Chief Smith could do was to make it available with a phone so that people could communicate with the police because they could not man the thing 24 hours.
Okay. Is everybody on this board that's running this project, are they confident that we're not going to be coming back here in 14 years to redo this again?
Well, the difference is now dispatch is going to be downstairs, so there is going to be manned 24 hours. You are going to be able to get, when you walk into that building, you will be able to get to a police officer, whereas before the dispatch was, according to the way it was designed in the 1990s, was to be left totally alone, not to be disturbed. The problem now is, the solution to that now is to bring that dispatch, bring it downstairs. The dispatch is there 24 hours, and the police officer will be there and available 24 hours. So I am very confident that that is going to be solved.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
In the south.
Dennis Clarity, 1 Harvest Road. The problem might be that the building, it might be that the building isn't big enough. It might be that we have too many police. Let me try the other speaker. Up until recently, we had about 24 officers on the force. And then the war on drugs came along, and the number of officers has doubled. Is there a problem with the speaker?
Just speak into the microphone.
Thank you. And what's happening now is that as we advance as a society, that we're learning that we can treat the problem of drug addiction as a medical problem, which it should have been done all along. Some countries have switched over from a police problem to treating it like a medical problem. Portugal, for example, and they had an 80% reduction in crime because of that. And what I'm suggesting is that if you spend all this money on this building, and in the future, when you get back to the gold standard of 1 officer per 1,000 people, that you're going to be left with a white elephant. And a lot of people, there's a lot of elderly people in this town, and for them to spend, it says 12% of our budget, which comes to about $500 on everyone's tax bill, for a useless white elephant that you're going to be paying for 20 years. I think it's unfair to burden the people of this town with this building. Now, nobody would object to fixing the lobby. Obviously, that has been done. Nobody objects to fixing the ventilation system. But if the Finance Committee could come back with something that solves the problems rather than a major construction project, I think everyone would agree that that's what needs to be done. Thank you for your attention.
In the north.
Sarah Rorick, 89 Cedar Street, Wakefield. I just had a quick question. I'm not sure who to ask, but how much has the population changed since 1950 and since in the last 14, 15 years?
Steve.
I think it's actually very little. It's still at 25, 26,000.
Okay.
Okay, any other first-timers? Oh, Mr. Mayo would like to go.
I just wanted to, I didn't give Mr. Sophia a very good answer on his question, and Mr. Clarity took off with it. If we were to pay $8 million in 1 year, yes, it would be 12% of the budget, or what have you. But no, we're going to bond this or pay a mortgage on it. So it's going to be more like less than 1% of our annual budget we paid yearly. So I apologize for not answering that question correctly.
Okay. Have you been up yet? Excuse me, have you been up yet? That's a yes, no question.
I haven't.
Okay. Oh, well, I gotta hear.
I'm too short.
No.
Amy Wall, 23 Elm
Oh,
Street.
okay.
I've
I
moved.
didn't see you leave your seat, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'd like to move the vote.
Is there a second? Any discussion on moving the vote? 2 minutes, that's all. Any discussion on moving the vote? Is to move it's 2/3, Tommy? Yeah, tellers, you better get up here. Ready? Are the original tellers here from the other night? Okay.
Are you taking discussion on moving the vote?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought that was, yeah, okay. I didn't see you.
There's only 2 people who want to speak, and I think, we're keep it brief. I think since there's only a couple people who want to speak, I think that we should just let them speak and then carry on.
Okay. Any other discussion on moving the vote?
Yeah, hi, Bob Mitchell, 6 Baldwin. Yeah, I agree with that. I'd like to speak just for a couple of minutes, but I think we are getting close to wrapping this thing up. It's a huge decision, so I recommend we give it a few more minutes. Thank you.
Okay. The motion is that we vote on it. So any other discussion on moving the vote? All in favor of moving the vote, raise your hand. Keep your hand in the air until you're sure you have been counted. Okay, you got to go count them now. You stand there. Frozen in time. My notice of contract, my new thing.
46 in the south.
Here, you get it. Announce it. Say the number in the microphone. You're on the north.
57 in the north.
72 in the center.
All right. All opposed to moving the question at this time, raise your hand. Keep your hand in the air until you're sure you have been counted.
$11 in the middle.
10 in the south.
$5 in the north.
What is it? You guys all set? 175? 175, 26? 175 in favor of moving the question. 26 opposed to moving the question. Therefore, we will move the question, which also requires a 2/3 vote. And so we're going to count this one. The motion before you, that the town appropriate the sum of $8 million for the remodeling, reconstructing, or making extraordinary repairs to the construction additions to the public safety building as set forth in Mr. Mayo's motion. All in favor, raise your hand and make sure you have been counted before you put your hand down. Yeah, all right. 9 and 10. Yeah.
43 in the south.
$56 in the north.
Not as many.
69 in the middle.
All those opposed to the motion under Article 8, raise your hand, keep your hand in the air until you're sure your vote has been counted.
$7 in the north.
$18 in the center.
16 in the south.
So it's 167 to 41? 168. 168 in favor, 41 opposed, motion carries. Article 9. Okay, let's be quiet. Article 9, to see if the town will raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds, including the excess and deficiency account, a sum of money to supplement the fire department budget for the period of July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, to see what the town will do about it. Mr. Mayo.
That the town transfer from free cash the amount of $165,000 to the personal services account of the fire department.
Is there a second? Mr. Mayo.
The town council and I are committed to ensuring the safety of all our citizens. Part of that commitment is the maintaining of 3 fire pieces available at all times, 2 at the central station and 1 in Greenwood. In order to safely maintain that level of service, we require a minimum of 10 firefighters on the job at all times. When we lose firefighters due to retirement injury, we usually need to backfill the positions with overtime. That is just a fact of our doing business. This fiscal year, we have had a number of additional firefighters injured or out of work due to other issues. 1 firefighter was also deployed. 2 of those who are out have since resigned. Therefore, in order to ensure that all shifts were fully covered, we are required to supplement the fire budget by $165,000 to cover the cost of overtime and the contractual payments at the retirements. This is less than fiscal 2017 appropriation, which was $200,000. And to hopefully ready this situation for next year, on last Monday night, we did place an extra $100,000 in the overtime budget for next fiscal year in the fire department. And we hope we can alleviate this appropriation in the future. I certainly am, as I am sure everyone in this entire community, appreciate the sacrifices made by all of our first responders. These fires that come are tragic. We just recently had one the other day, and thank God it was caught quickly, and firefighters really risked their lives to save a property, and the damage was minimum, and thank God the people weren't home. So this article ensures that we can maintain those excellent services we all deserve. Thank you.
Mr. Sherman, FinCom.
Over the last several years, this particular department has caused us much angst regarding this constant 150,000, 200,000, now tonight 165,000. We've had a lot of discussions about the fire department and the overtime and why do we keep running over. Some of you may recall reserve fund transfers have been happening on a regular basis. So we're supporting this 165,000 because we need to. We've also pushed for getting the budget up to where it needs to be. I'm not sure 100,000 is going to be enough. Time will tell. But I urge town meeting to vote to approve this, and also cross your fingers that the finance committee and the town council and the fire department can get this budget back to where it needs to be, and we don't keep getting these surprises. So please vote yes.
Any discussion on the motion under Article 9? There being no discussion, motion before you that the town transfer from free cash the amount of $165,000 to the personal services account of the fire department budget to carry out the purposes of this article. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Article 10. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money to supplement the school department budget for the period of July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, to provide for the payment of special education costs by appropriating from the Special Education Stabilization Fund, or to see what the town will do about it. Superintendent Smith.
That the town supplement the school department budget for the period of July 1, 2017 to June 30, 2018 by transferring the sum of $175,000 from the Special Education Stabilization Account created under Article 7 of the 2014 Annual Town Meeting warrant to carry out the purpose of this article.
Is there a second?
So I talked about this at length last week at the last session, so I'll just do a super quick summary right now. Since the FY18 budget was approved over a year ago, we have had in the school department 11 unanticipated student out-of-district placements. In addition to that information, the state did not meet its funding obligation of 75%. So we received 65%, as did the districts across the state of Massachusetts. But for Wakefield, that meant we received $210,000 less than expected. So as a result of these unanticipated placements and not receiving adequate funding, we were running a deficit of $690,000 early in FY18. We froze the budget in October. We were able to recover $515,000 over the course of the school year by saving in maintenance, operational, personnel, and supply lines. So at this time, we are looking to transfer the remaining $175,000 from the stabilization account. The Special Education Stabilization Account was set up and funded for this purpose. It's our version of a snow and ice emergency account for an unpredictable area of our budget, which is special education. And finally, I noted last week that the governor may approve additional money to be distributed to schools by the end of the fiscal year. If in fact that is the case, I will certainly work with my team, the school committee, the town administrator and finance committee to talk about how we can best refresh the stabilization account moving forward.
Mr. Sherman.
Now, the Finance Committee approves this motion, but one of the things, a couple comments that came up in our discussion was on the SPED budget. I mentioned this last week, is that the plan is to replenish this and turn it into a reserve that can be voted on town meeting at roughly 2/3 vote. Our calculations said this account should be closer to $500,000 to account for unanticipated. During the discussion of the school committee portion of the budget in Article 1, one question came up regarding the 4% and what was going on with that. And one of the things that I want to reiterate to this body is that we, being the Finance Committee, have articulated our concerns about the new contracts that's coming up and the contracts we're asking the school committee to look at the budget, not for 1 year, but for 4 years when doing the contract negotiations, so that they don't commit all of their income, if you will, to just salaries, and that they set aside more funds for unanticipated things like this sped budget. So our hope and our plan is to get this reserve back up to where it should be at the end of tonight. If this is approved, we'll be down to about $8,000 in that account, and it needs to be higher, so we'll be coming back at fall town meeting. But our plan is to work with the school committee to try to make sure that the school budget gets lined up in a better position versus our revenue. So with that, I urge a positive vote tonight on this article.
Any discussion on the motion under Article 10? There being no discussion, this requires a 2/3 vote. Let me do it in inverse order. Is anyone opposed to this? All opposed? Anyone, in case I can't see you? No? No one's opposed. Am I clear? Okay. So all in favor? And there being no opposition, there's no reason to count it if it's unanimous, correct, Mr. Mullen? The motion carries under Article 10. Article 11. Can I just suggest that we knock off the next two? You still want a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second to adjourn? Somebody, you got to speak up. Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Mr. Mayo?
No discussion.
No discussion?
No, I'd like to get the next two articles done if we could, but that's okay.
Yeah, the next, yeah. Let's get the next two done. Can I speak?
How much talk
No.
should there be?
I can't. Oh, yes, I could if I wanted.
Excuse me, but we've been here for several hours, and most people have left. And it's almost 10 o'clock now. I know you want to get everything done, but...
Well, we're not going to get everything done, but okay.
So, we may as well cut it.
Any other discussion on the motion to adjourn? All in favor? All opposed? Oh, we don't adjourn quite yet. Okay. Article 11, that the town authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the state legislature to enact special legislation as described to carry out the purpose of this article. Mr. Mayo.
That the town authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the state legislature to enact special legislation as described in this article.
Second.
Mr. Mayo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you for staying with me a little bit longer tonight. Article 11 is perhaps the most exciting article that I have had the privilege of presenting to this body. One of the priorities of the town council is to help our valued seniors remain in their homes. These are the people who set the strong foundation upon which Wakefield is built, and in an era of rising costs and prices, in some instances, some accommodations are needed to help making remaining in Wakefield a little easier. Thanks to the very hard work of Victor Santinello, our Director of Assessments, we have crafted a home rule petition that would request authorization of the state legislature to extend the state senior tax circuit breaker to the real estate taxes paid by our seniors. For those who qualify for the state program, we would offer a 100% match. So if someone is qualified by the state, they can receive currently up to $1,070 reduction in their annual taxes on the state taxes, and another $170 in Wakefield. The criteria to qualify for the senior circuit breaker income tax credit at the state level is you must be a Massachusetts resident or part-time resident. You must be 65 years or older by December 31st of that year. You must file a Massachusetts personal income tax return. You must own residential property in Massachusetts and occupy it as your primary residence. For this tax year, your total Massachusetts income cannot exceed $57,000 for a single individual who is not the head of a household, $72,000 for a head of household, or $86,000 for married couples filing a joint return. If you are a homeowner, your Massachusetts property tax payment together with half of your water and sewer expense must exceed 10% of your total Massachusetts income for the tax year. So that's what the state requires. We would follow the state lead here to see what people qualify. We think that's a fair way to do it. Our recommendations for a Wakefield senior circuit breaker real estate tax exemption are as follows. Wakefield would offer, as I said, a 100% match of individual circuit breaker income tax credit. So if you got $1,070 from the state, you would get $1,070 off your taxes here in Wakefield. The additional or second owner or the joint owner must be 60 years old, so primary would be 60. If there was an additional, primary at 65, the other owner could be 60. You must own and occupy a home in Wakefield for the past 10 consecutive years. Doesn't have to be the same home, but it has to be a home in Wakefield. You may have no other significant assets. So if you have a condo in Florida in a high-rise and that's worth $1 million, you would not qualify for this. You must make timely application with the Board of Assessors, because they have to go through the process, and you need to be approved by the Board of the Assessors. Taxpayers would need to complete a simple application during the month of August, and we say that in August because we need to know this when we're setting the tax bill, and have with them a copy of their state form CB2 or prior year income taxes showing receipt of the circuit breaker income tax credit. And for those owners who are in a trust, we need a copy of your trust to determine eligibility. The key here is the cost of this reduction in taxes would be shared by the remaining taxpayers within the residential tax base. So what that means is that if 20 people took advantage of this, that money that they saved, our seniors saved, would be spread along under the rest of us who are in that residential tax base. Based upon this experience on other communities like Reading, we anticipate roughly 200 participants. Should that be the case, the average taxpayer who's not involved in this program would see their taxes increase by $25 a year. I personally feel, and the town council feels, this is a great way to give back to our worthy seniors who have given so much. And on a personal note, my only regret is that my good friend Phyllis Hull is not with us to partake in this program, but I think she's with us in spirit.
No FinCom on this, right, Mr. Sherman? Okay. In the South.
Daniel Lieber, 1 Elm Street. As I'm going through this, I really like the idea of providing a tax relief for the seniors who have lived in the town for at least 10 years, which includes condominiums as is specified. I was wondering what the rationale is for having this only valid for 3 years. Section 6 specifically states that this should expire after 3 years. And I'm wondering if we should amend that so that it recurs automatically.
I'm going to have our tax assessor handle that, the tax man cometh, so to speak, because he was very involved in this, and he wanted to get some FaceTime up here. So.
A home rule petition is only good for 3 years before you have to re-petition again for renewal.
So the petition from a legal perspective, Mr. Mullen, this may get directed to you. We can only request a legislation that's valid for 3 years. Is that the understanding?
Yeah, the state.
Then we can re-up with them.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Christine DeFelice, 33 Lawrence Street. I just had Mr. Mayo, I think you said 86,000 for a joint married couple was the income level?
Yeah, that's what the state has set.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you said significant, as long as you didn't have significant assets and you used a second home as an example. So that doesn't count anything you have in the bank, IRAs or anything?
Well, it will be, correct. It would be very hard for us. We don't want to go digging.
No, I'm just trying to figure out like where.
If those other assets, though, do create significant amount of income on your tax return, then that would be an issue.
Right, so this would be the bottom line on your tax return after
Exactly.
any deductions that you had
Exactly.
made or anything?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
In the South.
He just answered the question I was going to ask. I was wondering was meant by significant assets. And I know when you fill out that application, it asks for your bank accounts you have. But is there a number attached to that? I mean, if an elderly retired person who's been here forever has money in the bank, are they disqualified? And if they are disqualified, at what level are they disqualified?
Can you answer that?
Which one? Mr. Clardy, it's, as Mr. Mayo mentioned, if you have a second home, a condo, or significant other means that may put you beyond the intended recipients of the exemption, you may not qualify. You would sign the application under the pains and penalties of perjury as well. We do ask if you have any significant assets. We do take a peek at your taxes and say, for example, you may qualify for the state circuit breaker, but when we look at the taxes, we may see this interest income coming in and say, gee, where's that from?
So if you qualify for the circuit breaker, you don't automatically qualify for the town.
Most likely, you will qualify for the town.
So there's an ambiguity here as to what you mean by significant assets and how are they determined? I mean, I understand condos and having other houses, but if an elderly person has a savings account that generates maybe 1%, I mean, at what level of their savings do you disqualify them? Is there a number?
No, there isn't.
It's just arbitrary?
Somewhat arbitrary. But in my experience, when I did this last year in Reading, we had 193 people apply, and 182 were qualified. One person was disqualified because they did have a condo in Florida.
Okay.
The other ones didn't qualify because they didn't meet the ownership requirements as the way their trusts were constructed.
Right. So all of those people had circuit breaker returns of
Yes.
the 198, 182 qualified.
Yes. The smallest one was $32.
Okay. And one of the comments about Steve's, if that would be about $200,000 total payout, approximately. Now, Steve, you said that would be $25 on the tax rate? That doesn't make sense.
Yes. When you spread that out under everybody else in the residential tax rate, tax levy, it'd be the average taxpayer, average tax bill would be $25 a year.
$25?
$25, yeah.
That was less than, you can spend $8 million for, and not have as much taxes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think you went 35.
Any further discussion under Article 11? There being no discussion, motion before you is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen on behalf of the town to petition the legislature for passage of special legislation substantially as provided in the motion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Article 12. To see if the town will vote to approve the Wakefield Retirement Board's vote to increase the maximum base on which the cost of living adjustment is calculated for the Wakefield Retirement System retirees and survivors from $12,000 to $14,000 for FYI 19 and subsequent years in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 32, Section 103J, or to see what the town will do about it. Mr. Sherman.
That the town approve the retirement board's vote to increase the maximum base amount on which the cost of living adjustment is calculated from $12,000 to $14,000 for fiscal year 2019 and subsequent years in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 32, Section 103J, to carry out the purpose of this article.
Second.
Mr. Sherman.
I'm switching hats. I'm a member of the retirement board, the fifth and appointed member, and to have this particular article after 10 o'clock was probably unfair to all of you. It's a little bit complex, so I will endeavor to make sure everybody understands what's going on here. Retirees, unlike most of you who may be retired or about to retire and receive Social Security benefits, if there's say a 2% or a 3% increase in your cost of living, no matter what you are earning from Social Security, if you're earning $30,000, $50,000, and $10,000, you get 3% increase on whatever that amount is. Under Chapter 32, it doesn't quite work that way. We need to make things more complex. So the way it works under Chapter 32 for our retirees is right now the cap of $12,000 that's eligible for a cost of living increase. So if a retiree is earning, say, $27,000 or $28,000, they don't get 3% on $28,000, they get 3% on $360 increase. So anybody above a $12,000 pension will not get 3%, will get something less than that. The law allows the retirement board to increase that base, that COLA base is how we refer to it, in increments of $1,000. Now, there are 104 systems in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. 35 systems still use $12,000 as the base, and Wakefield is one of those. The other 69 systems have all increased their base to something higher. Many are at 13,000. There's many at 14,000. There's a few at 15, 16, 17, and there's actually 4 systems that have moved all the way up to $18,000 as their base. The state and the state teachers, which includes Wakefield teachers, now have a $13,000 COLA base. So they've seen an increase, and that occurred several years ago. So right now we have 327 retirees and beneficiaries plus 41 disabled. So roughly 370 retirees now are limited in the size of their cost of living adjustment. The average pension for these retirees is about $28,000. So for the average retiree, if we grant a 3% increase, they only get 1.3%. Social Security this past year was at 2%. For those of you on it, you knew that. So what we're proposing, the retirement board is proposing, is to increase that base from $12,000 to $14,000. Of course, you can't give away anything without a cost. So I calculated the cost. I'm an actuary. I do work for 17 retirement systems, and this question comes up to me all the time. So using the state work and my own work, I've determined that the cost of this increase is roughly $150,000 a year, but it does not start until fiscal year end 22 if we vote this evening. And the reason for that is the timing of the increase and when it'll be measured. The state is doing their work right now as of January 1st of 2018. They look at our plan as of January 1st of 2018, and it's applicable for fiscal years 20 and 21. If town meeting tonight votes to increase the base from $12,000 to $14,000, the first time that cost is actually measured would be 2 years from now, and therefore it will affect us in fiscal year 22. So I mentioned that it will cost about $1.5 million, but we don't start paying for it until fiscal year 22. I think those are the most important items I wanted to cover. And with that...
Mr. Sherman, FinCom. Move your little hat there that you moved before.
Yeah,
move
my
that
hat
hat
over.
back over. There you go.
The Finance Committee unanimously approved this article and encourages positive vote from town meeting.
Any discussion on the motion under Article 12? There be no discussion. Most before you to see if the town votes to approve the Wakefield Retirement Board's vote to increase the maximum base on which the cost of living adjustment is calculated for the Wakefield Retirement System retirees and survivors from $12,000 to $14,000 for FY19 and subsequent years in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 32, Section 103J. All in favor? All opposed? Where's Mr. Clardy when I need him?
I move that we adjourn the meeting tonight until this coming Thursday at 7 p.m., May 10th.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? All opposed? See you Thursday.